The first scream did not come from the tracks. It came from the far end of the subway platform, where the lights were always a little dim and the air always smelled like wet metal. Maya Patel was only there because her shift ended late. She held her phone in one hand and her tote bag in the other. Her headphones were in, but nothing was playing. She was tired. She was watching the safety line like her life depended on it, because in this city, it sometimes did. Then the air changed. It felt wrong, not cold, not hot, just wrong. Like the station had taken one deep breath and forgot how to let it out. A thin crack of pale light opened near a service door that should have been locked. It was not a normal light. It did not flicker like a bulb. It looked like a clean tear in the world, as if someone had cut a straight line through the air. People stepped back. Some lifted phones. A few laughed like it was a stunt. A figure stepped through. He was tall and thin. His coat looked old, but not dirty. A long beaked mask covered his face. Round glass lenses hid his eyes. Dark gloves covered his hands. He carried a worn leather case like a doctor on a house call. He did not look around like a lost tourist. He looked around like a professional arriving to work. He tilted his head slowly. He listened, not to the crowd, to something inside the crowd. Maya's throat went tight. She could not explain why. She just knew her body wanted to move away from him. The man took one calm step forward, then another. People parted without meaning to. It was not because he shoved them. It was because he moved like he belonged, and their instincts did the rest. His voice, when he spoke, was polite and steady. He said softly, as if talking to himself. I detect it. A woman near Maya whispered, "Is that, like, cosplay?" Someone else said, "Yo, that's sick." The man's head turned toward the sound. He did not answer. A loud argument snapped across the platform. A young guy in a hoodie was holding a woman's wrist too tight. The woman tried to pull away. The guy pulled harder. "Give me the bag," he hissed. The woman shook her head. "No, stop!" People watched. Some looked away. Some raised phones. No one stepped in fast enough. The masked man walked toward them. Maya felt the strange urge to shout, to warn him, but she could not find the words. The guy saw the mask and laughed. "What the hell are you supposed to be?" The masked man stopped at arm's length. He bowed his head slightly, like he was greeting a patient. "I'm a physician," he said. The mugger rolled his eyes. "Yeah? Then prescribe me your wallet." He reached out. The masked man caught his wrist with one gloved hand. It was gentle, almost careful. The mugger's face changed in a blink. His mouth opened like he was about to swear again, but nothing came out. His body went slack. His knees gave way. He dropped like someone had turned him off. The woman screamed and yanked her arm free, stumbling backward. Maya's tote bag fell from her hand. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She stared at the mugger's body, waiting for him to gasp or twitch. He did not. The masked man held the dead wrist for one extra second, as if checking a pulse, then let it go. "I'm sorry," he said to the body, calm as a nurse. "It was necessary." The platform erupted. People ran. Some jumped the turnstiles. Some shoved. Someone yelled about a gun. Someone else yelled about poison. Phones went up in every direction. Maya found her tote bag and backed away, eyes locked on the mask. The masked man did not chase anyone. He did not hurry. He simply looked at the crowd like a doctor watching patients refuse treatment. Then he turned and walked into the flow of panicked people, slipping between them as if he was made of smoke. Above ground, 3 blocks away, Annie January pushed through a crowd outside a bodega. Her hair was pulled back, her hoodie was up. She did not want cameras right now, but she could still hear them. "Did you see the video?" "He touched him and he died," Plague doctor, plague doctor. Annie's stomach dropped. She had heard a lot of things in this city. Most of them were dumb. Some were cruel. A few were true in the worst way. Her phone buzzed. A message from Vault Security. Incident. Possible soup. Subway. 4 dead? Unconfirmed. 4? The clip she saw showed 1. Her next message was from Ashley, all caps, even in text. Get to tower. Now. Annie looked at the people around her. A kid pointed at the subway entrance like it was a haunted house. A man was already selling Plague Doctor shirts on a folding table because this city could sell anything. Annie felt the old anger rise, the same anger that always came when fear became a product. She moved toward the subway stairs. She got there fast. Too fast for a normal person, but not fast enough to stop what already happened. Inside, the platform was half empty now. Police were trying to push people back. Vault Security arrived in dark suits, acting like they owned the air. A few cops looked relieved. A few looked annoyed. Nobody looked in control. Annie's eyes found the body. Covered now. A sheet over the face. A shoe sticking out like a forgotten detail. A Vault Security man pointed down the tunnel. He went that way. Annie's skin prickled. She forced her voice to stay even. Did anyone see his face? Mask, the guard said. Like a bird. Annie scanned the tunnel, the stairs, the doors. The air felt normal again. The wrongness was gone, like it was never there. Then she saw him. Not in the tunnel. Not on the tracks. On the far side of the platform, near a vending machine, standing as still as a statue. The beaked mask looked right at her. Annie stepped forward slowly. She kept her hands visible. She did not want to start a fight with a stranger who could drop people with a touch. Hey, she said. I'm here to help. You can talk to me. The masked man bowed again, like she was a client, not a threat. Madam, he said, are you a practitioner? Annie blinked. A what? A healer, he clarified, voice gentle. A medical worker. Annie hesitated. Not exactly. But I help people. He nodded as if that answer was acceptable. Then you understand, he said. This place is afflicted. It is widespread. Afflicted with what? Annie asked. The pestilence, he said, like it was obvious. Annie felt a chill. I don't know what that is. The masked man's head tilted. It is difficult to explain to the untrained. A security man behind Annie raised his gun. Annie lifted a hand without looking back. No, she snapped. The doctor's attention shifted for a second toward the gun, then returned to Annie. I do not wish to cause alarm, he said. But I must do my work. Annie took one more step closer, not too close, close enough to show she wasn't running. And your work is killing people. He sounded honestly surprised. No, madam. My work is to cure them. Annie's mouth went dry. Curing doesn't look like that. It does, he said, calm as stone. Sometimes. She wanted to ask 100 questions. Who are you? Where did you come from? Why here? Before she could, a train thundered into the station on the opposite track, a loud metal wall that shook the platform. Annie flinched on reflex, eyes flicking for 1 second. When the train passed, the doctor was gone. Only a faint smell remained, like clean cloth and old leather. Annie stood still, hearing the crowd above, hearing the sirens, hearing her own breath. She realized something that made her stomach twist. This was not a soup looking for attention. This was someone who did not care if the world watched, and that meant the next time he touched someone, it would not be an accident on camera. It would be on purpose. Ashley Barrett's heels clicked like gunshots across the Vought Tower floor. She held a tablet in one hand and a printed folder in the other, because nobody trusted one format anymore. Every crisis needed backups. She marched into the executive conference room and slapped the folder down. "Okay," she said, breath tight. "We have a situation." Screens showed the subway video from 12 different angles. The beaked mask, the wrist grab, the drop. A man in a suit with a tie too expensive to be real cleared his throat. "Casualties?" "Confirmed one in the clip," Ashley said. "Unconfirmed reports say more. People are saying poison. People are saying magic. People are saying it's a foreign weapon. It is trending. It is trending in 6 languages." A lawyer at the table raised a hand like a kid in school. "Is he signed to us?" Ashley stared at him like he was insane. "No." The lawyer nodded, scribbling. "Then, he is a liability." Someone else leaned forward. "We can brand him as a villain." "We can sue him," the lawyer added, as if that solved anything. Ashley snapped. "You can't sue a guy who might kill you by tapping your shoulder." The door opened. The room went silent. Homelander walked in with a smile that did not touch his eyes. He moved like the building belonged to him, and so did everyone inside it. Behind him, a few people stood up too fast. A few stayed seated, but went stiff. One executive started sweating instantly. Homelander looked at the video once. His face did not change. Then he spoke, voice easy and light, like he was joking with friends. "So," he said, "we've got a Birdman." Ashley tried to sound calm. "We don't know what he is yet." Homelander's eyes flicked to her. "We know he's in my city." Nobody corrected him. Ashley swallowed. "We need a plan. People are scared." Homelander's smile widened. "Good." Ashley blinked. "Good?" "Fear makes them listen." Annie's old voice in Ashley's head whispered. "Fear makes them buy. Fear makes them beg." Homelander leaned on the table like he was bored. "Find him. Bring him in." One executive cleared his throat. "For questioning." Homelander looked at him like he was a bug. "No," Homelander said. "For control." Ashley jumped in fast. "We can't just grab him. We don't know his power set." Homelander nodded as if he was being patient with a child. "Then we test him." A scientist at the far end spoke carefully. "His method appears contact-based. The subject died instantly after physical contact." Homelander's gaze sharpened. For a half-second, the room felt colder. "Contact-based," Homelander repeated. Ashley jumped again, forcing energy into her voice. "Okay, great. So, gloves, distance, net guns. We already have those for, crowd stuff." "Not good enough," Homelander said. Ashley tried to smile. "We also have a legal packet ready. We can label him a rogue soup. We can—" A lawyer raised the folder. "We have a preliminary waiver for civilian interaction, a public safety statement, and a new no-touch policy that—" Homelander's eyes flicked to the lawyer. "A policy?" The lawyer nodded. Eager. "Yes. If we push it out fast, it shows leadership." Homelander didn't move, but the lawyer's pen shook in his hand anyway. "Policies don't stop threats," Homelander said. Ashley forced a laugh that sounded like a cough. "Okay, so, capture, contain. We can do that. Just carefully." Homelander straightened. His voice stayed smooth, but it had an edge. "I don't like mysteries," he said. "And I don't like anyone who makes me look surprised." Ashley nodded too fast. "Understood." Homelander turned toward the screen again. The beaked mask froze mid-frame, a silent, still image. Homelander smiled again, smaller this time. "Bring him to me," he said. "Alive." He paused. "Preferably." Huey Campbell watched the same clip on a cracked phone in a dirty safehouse kitchen. The video played again. The touch, the dead drop, the screaming. Huey's hands were sweating. "That can't be real." Butcher leaned on the counter like he was watching a sports highlight. "Oh, it's real," Butcher said. His eyes gleamed with the kind of interest that usually meant someone was about to suffer. "That's real as a heart attack." MM took the phone from Huey and watched once, his jaw set. "This ain't like normal," MM said. "That's not lasers. That's not super strength. That's something else." Frenchie leaned in, eyes wide in the wrong way. "He is dressed like old plague stories, no? Like the doctors with the long beaks." Kimiko watched without blinking. Her face stayed blank, but her fingers curled. Ready. Huey swallowed. "Why would someone do that?" Butcher shrugged. "Maybe he's a nutter. Maybe he's a soup with a weird trick. Maybe he's something better." Huey looked at him. "Better?" "Better for us," Butcher said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "A bloke who can kill with a touch. Imagine what that does to Homelander." MM's voice went sharp. "No." Butcher's smile did not fade. "Oh, come on. You're telling me you're not thinking it." MM stepped closer. "I'm thinking if this guy can do that to anyone, then we don't control him. Nobody does. But we can point him," Butcher said, "like a gun." Huey felt sick. "People aren't targets." Butcher's eyes flicked to him. "Since when?" Silence hit the room like a heavy door closing. Then Frenchie spoke, soft, trying to make it practical. "If it is contact, then you fight him with distance. Gas, foam, drones, thick gloves, insulated suits." Butcher waved a hand. "Or you let him do the touching." Huey heard the way Butcher said it. Like touching was a tool. MM took a slow breath. "We find out what he is first. We watch. We don't jump." Butcher's smile returned. Sharp. "Watch all you like. Vought won't. They'll grab him, slap a logo on his forehead, and call it a win." Huey imagined that mask on a Vought poster. Vought Cure, in bright letters. A smiling kid. A legal disclaimer in tiny print. He felt angry, and that surprised him. Angry because it was so possible. "So what do we do?" Huey asked. Butcher's eyes stayed on the screen. "We do what we always do," Butcher said. "We get there before they do." Annie sat alone in her dressing room, staring at her own hands. She had washed them 3 times since the subway. It didn't help. The feeling stayed anyway. Her phone buzzed again. Ashley. "Come in. Homelander wants you briefed." Annie closed her eyes for a second. She didn't want to go, but she had to. If Homelander made the first move without her, people would die. More than one. She stood, grabbed her jacket, and walked out. In the hallway, posters of the 7 smiled back at her. Perfect teeth. Perfect skin. Perfect lies. Annie moved past them and thought for a moment about the beaked mask. It had not smiled. It had not threatened. It had just done its work. And that scared her more than a liar with a cape. The trap was built like a stage. That was the part that made Annie want to vomit. Vought rented an empty clinic space in a quiet part of the city. They filled it with cameras. They filled it with security. They filled it with bright lights that made everyone look clean and heroic. They even filled it with actors. Annie learned that when she walked in and saw a young man on a gurney, fake sweat on his face, fake fear in his eyes. A nurse in scrubs sat beside him, saying lines too smoothly. 2 Vought lawyers stood in the corner, holding clipboards like shields. Ashley stood near the door, whispering fast. "Okay, we got reports that he goes toward sick people, so we give him sick. Then we contain. No one touches him. Everyone stays on script." Annie stared at her. "Are you serious?" Ashley's eyes were wild. "This is serious, Annie. This is a nightmare. This is an unbranded nightmare." Annie's voice dropped. "People already died." Ashley flinched. "Yes, and if Homelander decides to handle this his way, more will. So please, help me keep this controlled." Annie looked at the actors again. She hated it. But she also knew Ashley wasn't wrong about one thing. Homelander was not patient. Annie walked into the room and took a spot near the gurney, but not too close. She could feel the cameras. She could feel the security teams behind the walls. And somewhere, she could feel Homelander, even when he wasn't in the room, like a storm waiting to happen. Minutes passed, then the air shifted. It was subtle, like a pressure change before rain. The clinic's lights flickered once. Annie's heart kicked. From the hallway, a soft sound. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. The beaked mask appeared at the doorway like he had simply been walking there the whole time. He paused, taking in the room, the bright lights, the clean walls, the sterile smell. He breathed in, almost pleased. "A proper facility," he said softly. Annie forced herself to speak first. "You came." "Of course," he replied. "You requested assistance?" "I didn't request." Annie stopped. Arguing about words would not help. He stepped inside. The security teams did not rush him. They stayed hidden. That was the plan. Wait for him to commit. Wait for him to approach the patient. Then lock him in. The doctor moved toward the gurney, eyes on the sick man. The actor's breathing got faster. Annie realized the actor was not that good. He was actually terrified. The doctor leaned close. He did not touch yet. He listened. He tilted his head. Then he spoke with quiet certainty. "Yes," he said. "I can feel it on you." The actor's voice cracked. "Please, please don't." Annie stepped between them, raising her hands. "Stop." The doctor's head turned toward her. "Madam," he said, calm. "He is suffering." "He's afraid," Annie said. "Fear is common," the doctor said. "It doesn't change necessity." Annie's pulse hammered. She kept her voice steady, the way she did when kids were crying at charity events. "You can't just touch people," she said. "You can't decide for them." The doctor was silent for a moment. Then he answered as if she had asked a serious medical question. "If the pestilence remains untreated," he said, "it spreads. It destroys. It becomes everywhere." Annie glanced at the security camera in the corner, knowing Ashley was watching, knowing Homelander was watching somewhere too. "Then treat it without killing," Annie said. The doctor's shoulders rose and fell in a slow breath. "You misunderstand," he said gently. "The first step is unpleasant. The second step is mercy." Annie felt her skin crawl. Behind the walls, a click. A mechanism engaging. The doctor's head snapped slightly, like he had heard the sound through stone. The doors slammed shut. Heavy locks clamped down. Metal bars slid into place. The actor on the gurney screamed and tried to get up. Annie backed away from him, eyes on the doctor. For the first time, the doctor's voice lost a hint of softness. "This is not appropriate protocol," he said. Annie swallowed. "Protocol?" He turned his masked face toward the camera, toward the hidden watchers. "You wish to contain an illness," he said. "You do not do so by inviting it deeper." Annie realized something in that moment. He had expected traps. Maybe he always expected traps. Maybe that was why he never looked rushed. A vent in the ceiling opened. Gas hissed into the room. Annie's eyes widened. "Ashley, no!" Her words disappeared into the growing fog. The doctor didn't panic. He reached into his leather case and pulled out a small object. Not a weapon, a simple mask filter, like a medical tool. He pressed it to his beaked mask, as if his own mask had layers. Annie held her breath and stepped back. She could handle some toxins. Not all. Vought didn't always tell her what they used. The doctor looked at her again. "Madam," he said, voice muffled now. "You are not safe in this room," Annie snapped. "Neither are you." He took one step toward her. Annie flinched, ready to blast him if he reached for her. He did not reach. He lifted his hand and pointed at the far wall. The plaster bulged outward, like something pushed from behind. Then it cracked. A body fell through. Not a person alive. A person dead. The actor on the gurney screamed louder. Annie's stomach turned. She saw the dead man's eyes. They were open, but empty. The doctor stepped toward the dead body with calm focus, like a surgeon seeing a familiar case. He knelt, opened his case wider, and began to work. Annie backed away, choking on thin gas, watching his hands move with careful speed. He wasn't just escaping. He was building something. The dead body jerked. Then it sat up. Not like a person waking from sleep, like a puppet yanked by strings. It turned its head slowly. Its mouth opened as if it wanted to breathe, but its chest barely moved. Annie's blood went cold. The doctor stood, satisfied. "There," he said softly. "Much better." The revived thing rose to its feet, unsteady, then steadied itself. It looked at the doctor like a dog waiting for a command. Annie raised her glowing hands. "What did you do?" The doctor glanced at her. "I treated him," he said. The revived thing lunged at the locked door and slammed into it again and again, like it did not feel pain. The locks groaned. Annie understood the plan now. Vought trapped the doctor in. The doctor created something that did not care about traps. The door burst open. Security teams shouted. Bullets cracked. The revived thing kept moving until it was torn apart. But in that half-second, the opening was enough. The doctor stepped into the hallway like a man leaving a waiting room. Annie stumbled after him, gas still in her lungs. "Stop!" she yelled. He paused just long enough to look back. His voice was calm again. "I will continue my work," he said, "with or without your consent." Then he moved. He did not run like A-Train. He did not fly like Homelander. He simply walked into the chaos, and every person who tried to get close hesitated. Because nobody wanted to be the one who found out what his touch felt like. Annie watched him disappear into the building's bright, clean hallways. Ashley's voice crackled in Annie's earpiece, panicked. "We lost him! We lost him! Homelander is—" Annie cut her off. "Don't send Homelander." Ashley didn't answer. Annie already knew what that silence meant. Homelander was going to hunt. In a vote lab 2 floors down, a scientist picked up the leather case the doctor left behind in the confusion. It was not the main case. It was a smaller pouch, dropped or placed on purpose. The scientist opened it with gloved hands, careful and shaking. Inside were neat tools, clean cloth, a few handwritten notes in ink in a careful old style, and one small metal tag, scratched and worn, attached to a strap. 3 characters were etched into it. 0.049. The scientist stared at it. He swallowed. Then he wrote it down on his clipboard, because that was what Vought people did when they were scared. He labeled the file in the system the same way. Subject 049. Down the hall, a lawyer started drafting a no physical contact policy with 3 pages of disclaimers. And above them all, Homelander smiled at the idea of a new name he could crush. By morning, the city felt different. People didn't know why, not in a clean sentence. They just knew. Handshakes looked risky. Crowds felt closer than they used to. Strangers looked like possible danger. The first new death happened in a parking garage. A man reached out to stop someone from stealing his car. The thief turned, grabbed his hand, and the man dropped. When the cameras showed the thief's mask, the city's fear gained a shape. "Plague Doctor," the headline said. The second death happened in a homeless shelter. Then a third, outside a pharmacy. And in each place, witnesses swore they saw more than the doctor. They saw helpers. They described people who moved wrong, people who didn't talk, people who kept walking even when they were hurt. Vought called it hysteria. The government called it a possible outbreak. The internet called it a curse. And Annie January sat in a stairwell behind Vought Tower, trying to breathe, thinking about the doctor's words, with or without your consent. The worst part was that he sounded like he meant it as kindness. The hospital lockdown began with a beep, a simple alarm, the kind of sound people ignored every day. But this time, the doors did not reopen. Huey stood in the lobby holding a visitor badge that said, "Helper," because Frenchie had forged it in 5 minutes. "Are you sure this is the place?" Huey whispered. MM scanned the room. "This is the place. 3 dead came through here last night. 1 came back on the table, according to a nurse who quit on the spot." Frenchie adjusted the strap of his bag. "This is bad, yes, but it is also predictable. He wants a clinic, so he comes where clinics are." Kimiko stood near the wall, hood up, eyes moving like a guard dog. Butcher wasn't there. Huey hated that. When Butcher went missing, it usually meant he was doing something he didn't want anyone to stop. A nurse ran past them, face pale. "They sealed the ICU," a doctor shouted. "No one touches anyone! Stay apart!" Huey blinked. Did he make them afraid of touching? MM grabbed Huey's shoulder and pulled him toward the stairs. "Move!" They climbed fast. The hospital's hallways were bright and clean, but the fear made them feel narrow. A security guard stopped them. "You can't go up there." MM flashed a badge without slowing. "We're with maintenance. Ventilation issue." The guard hesitated, confused. Frenchie said in a sharp whisper, "If you want to breathe today, you let us pass." The guard stepped aside. Huey's heart was pounding so hard he felt it in his throat. They reached the ICU doors. 2 nurses stood outside, crying. A surgeon sat on the floor, head in hands. Inside the glass, people moved slowly, like they were afraid of bumping into each other. Huey saw a patient in bed sit up. The patient's monitors were flat. The patient's eyes were open, and the patient was moving anyway. Huey's stomach flipped. "Jesus," he whispered. MM's face tightened. "That's one of them." Frenchie unzipped his bag and pulled out a canister. "Sedation gas. Mild. If he breathes. If he cares." Kimiko tapped the glass with 1 knuckle and pointed down the hall. Huey followed her gesture. At the far end, near a supply closet, a tall figure stood like a shadow given shape. The beaked mask, the long coat, the leather case in hand again. He was not panicking. He was not hiding. He was waiting, like the hospital belonged to him for the moment. The doctor's head turned toward them slowly, as if he had felt their presence the way he claimed to feel sickness. Then the ICU door lock clicked, not opened by a hand, opened by itself. Huey stared. "How?" MM pulled him back. "Doesn't matter. We don't let him get close." The doctor stepped forward. A nurse inside screamed and tried to run, but slipped on the polished floor. The doctor walked toward her. Huey's body moved before his brain finished thinking. He pushed through the door, stepping into the ICU. MM cursed and followed, because MM always followed when someone did something stupid and brave. Frenchie followed too, already pulling a mask over his mouth. Kimiko slipped in last, silent. The nurse on the floor crawled backward, eyes wide. The doctor stopped a few feet away. He did not rush her. He did not loom. He knelt, like he was trying to be gentle. "Madam," he said softly, "you are infected." The nurse shook her head hard. No, please. I'm fine." "It is not your fault," the doctor said. "Most do not know until it is advanced." Huey stepped between them, hands up, palms out, like he was trying to stop a car with politeness. "Hey," Huey said, voice cracking. "Stop! You can't." The doctor looked at Huey. He paused, like he was interested. You, the doctor said. Huey swallowed. Me? You do not belong to this ward, the doctor said. Yet you risk yourself. That is uncommon here. Huey didn't know what to say to that. Stepped in beside him, voice hard. Back off. The doctor's head tilted. You're armed. Held up a compact device, not a gun, a taser-like tool with a long-range prong. I'm prepared, said. The doctor nodded once. Preparation is wise. Then the dead patient behind them slid out of bed. Huey heard the sheets fall. He turned. The revived patient lurched forward, arms out, mouth open in a slow, empty sound. Kimiko moved first. She crossed the space in a blur and caught the revived patient by the shoulders. She slammed it into the wall hard enough to crack tile. The revived body didn't react like a normal person. No gasp, no pain noise. It just kept trying to move, like it was driven by one command. Kimiko hit it again. Faster. Stronger. The body's head snapped to the side. It still reached for her. Huey's skin crawled. It doesn't stop. Frenchie tossed the canister down the hall and popped it. A thin gas spread low, hugging the floor. The doctor's head lifted slightly, as if smelling it. He did not cough. He simply stepped back, away from the gas, as calm as always. Fired his device. 2 prongs shot out and struck the doctor's coat. Electricity crackled. The doctor's body stiffened for a split second. Then the prongs fell away, smoking. The doctor looked down at the holes in his coat. He sounded disappointed. That is unnecessary, he said. Stared. It didn't do anything. Frenchie whispered, He is insulated. Of course he's insulated. The doctor's gaze shifted to Frenchie. And you, he said. You carry tools. You understand work. Frenchie's eyes widened, almost offended. Do not flatter me. I am trying to stop you. You cannot stop a cure, the doctor said. Huey's hands shook. It's not a cure if people don't want it. The doctor's voice stayed patient. They rarely want it. A loud boom shook the hospital. Huey flinched. Then another boom, closer. The hallway lights flickered. A nurse shouted from outside the ward. The 7 are here. M's face tightened. Oh, hell. Huey's stomach sank. Annie! As if summoned by his thought, Starlight stepped into the ICU doorway. Her eyes took in the scene fast. The revived body fighting Kimiko, the gas haze, Huey and tense, the beaked mask in the center like a calm storm. Annie's voice was steady, but her face was tight. Stop, she said. All of you. Back up. The doctor turned toward her with a small bow. Madam, he said again, like they were meeting for tea. Annie didn't bow back. You're in a hospital. People here are trying to live. And I am helping them, the doctor said. Annie's jaw clenched. By killing them. By treating them, he corrected. Behind Annie, the air changed. Huey felt it before he saw it, like pressure building. Homelander floated into view over the hallway, just outside the ward, calm and smiling like he was arriving at a red carpet. His cape didn't brush the floor. His boots didn't squeak. He hovered, hands relaxed at his sides. The hospital staff behind him pressed against walls, terrified of getting too close to anyone. Homelander's eyes locked on the beaked mask. Well, Homelander said, voice bright. There you are. The doctor looked at Homelander. For the first time, Huey saw something like interest sharpen in the doctor's still posture. Not fear. Not awe. Interest, like a complicated case, walked into the room. Homelander drifted forward a foot. Annie snapped. Don't get close! Homelander didn't look at her. Relax, Annie, I've got it. His eyes stayed on the doctor. You killed people in my city. The doctor replied calmly. I treated them. Homelander's smile twitched. You're gonna stop. The doctor's head tilted. On what authority? Homelander's eyes narrowed. Mine. Huey's breath caught. Homelander wasn't used to being questioned. He wasn't used to anyone not begging. But the doctor didn't beg. He didn't even sound impressed. He simply said, "You exhibit severe symptoms?" Homelander went very still. The room felt like it froze. Annie whispered, "Oh no." Homelander's voice went quiet. Too quiet. "Excuse me?" The doctor took one slow step forward. Huey's heart jumped. One step. That was all it took to change everything. "You are saturated," the doctor said, voice almost gentle. "It is. Extraordinary." Homelander's eyes flashed red. "Say another word," Homelander said. The doctor did not stop. He reached into his case, not for a weapon, but for a tool, a scalpel. Clean. Sharp. Old. Homelander's heat vision fired. A thin red line sliced across the room, cutting through a metal cart like it was paper. Annie threw a blast of light upward, not at Homelander, but at the ceiling lights, popping them to create darkness for a second. The ward dipped into shadow. People screamed. Kimiko shoved the revived body away and grabbed Huey's hoodie, hauling him behind a heavy cabinet. Yanked Frenchie down with him. In the darkness, the doctor moved. Not fast like A-Train. Fast enough. He used the chaos like a door opening. Homelander's heat vision flared again, sweeping the room. It burned through the gas haze, turning it into a stinging fog. The doctor's coat caught the edge of the beam. It smoked. He didn't scream. He didn't even stumble. He stepped behind a hospital bed, and the beam sliced the mattress apart instead. Annie slid across the floor, stopping near the nurse still on the ground. She grabbed the nurse's arm and pulled her back, careful not to touch the doctor. Her hands glowed, bright enough to light the ward. "Everyone out!" Annie shouted. "Move!" Homelander dropped lower, hovering just above the floor now. He didn't charge. That was what scared Huey. Homelander was thinking. Homelander pointed two fingers like a gun at the doctor's chest. "Tell me how your little trick works," Homelander said, "before I melt you." The doctor looked at him, calm. "It is not a trick," he said. "It is medicine." Homelander's eyes narrowed further. "Fine. Then here's my medicine." He lunged forward and stopped. Not because he couldn't reach, because the doctor lifted his gloved hand, palm forward, an open invitation. One touch away. Homelander hovered there, inches closer, jaw tight. Huey watched, stunned. Homelander was hesitating, not because he was afraid of being hurt in a normal way, because for the first time, there was a kind of harm he didn't understand. The doctor spoke softly, like he was giving an honest warning. "If you insist on physical contact," he said, "you will not survive." Homelander's mouth curled. "You think you can kill me?" "I don't think," the doctor replied. "I observe." A loud crash sounded down the hall. Black Noir appeared in the doorway without a sound, like he had stepped out of a shadow. He carried no gun, just blades, short and sharp. Noir didn't talk. He didn't posture. He moved. He darted toward the doctor's side, aiming for a slice, not a grab. The doctor shifted one step back, and his revived patient, still moving, still wrong, threw itself in Noir's path. Noir cut it down with clean strikes, but the body kept reaching until Noir's blade severed tendons and joints. Even then, the hands crawled. Huey's throat tightened. "That's not human anymore." Frenchie whispered, "It is a worker. A tool." Homelander's gaze snapped to Noir. "Don't touch him," Homelander said sharply, like he was giving an order to a dog he liked. Noir didn't look at him. He didn't need to. He already understood the risk. Noir flipped backward, keeping distance. He tossed a small device, flash charge, toward the doctor's feet. It popped with a hard white burst. The doctor's head turned away, but too late. For the first time, he reacted like a normal body. He staggered half a step. Annie's eyes widened. He can be disrupted. Raised his device again. Frenchie grabbed a foam grenade, the kind used for riot control. Huey saw Butcher's plan in his head before Butcher even walked in. And then, Butcher did walk in. He came through a side door with a grin and a small remote in his hand. He looked at the doctor, then at Homelander, then back at the doctor, like he was lining up two pieces on a board. "Oi!" Butcher called, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Dr. Bird?" The doctor's head turned. Butcher held up the remote and clicked it. A metal barrier dropped behind Homelander with a slam, boxing him in the ward entrance. Homelander whipped his head around, fury flashing. Butcher didn't care. He smiled wider. "Now," Butcher said, voice bright and cruel, "you two have a proper chat." Huey's blood turned to ice. "Butcher!" he yelled. "What are you doing?" Butcher didn't look at him. "Saving us, Huey." Homelander's heat vision fired at the barrier. It glowed red and began to melt. Butcher didn't flinch. He knew it would only hold for seconds. He only needed seconds. The doctor, still calm, looked at Homelander again. Homelander hovered, trapped for a moment by metal and timing, eyes burning with rage. The doctor lifted his hand once more, palm open. A clean offer. Annie shouted, "No, don't do it!" Huey didn't think. He ran. Kimiko grabbed his collar, trying to stop him, but Huey twisted free. He sprinted toward the space between the doctor and Homelander, waving his arms like that could stop a disaster. "Stop!" Huey yelled. "Both of you!" Homelander's eyes snapped to Huey. "Get out of the way!" The doctor's mask turned toward Huey. "You are in danger?" "I know," Huey snapped. His voice shook, but he stayed there anyway. "That's the point." The metal barrier behind Homelander buckled. Homelander moved forward, but he had to avoid Huey. That single fact changed the whole moment. Homelander didn't care about most people, but he cared about how it looked when he killed one in public. And this hospital had cameras. He swerved, just slightly. The doctor's hand moved, reaching for the opening Homelander almost gave him. Annie blasted a beam of light across the floor between them, a bright line that forced distance. Noir pulled Huey back by the collar without a word, yanking him out of the danger zone. The barrier melted apart. Homelander surged forward again, and the doctor was no longer there. He moved behind a curtain, through a staff doorway, using the hospital's maze like it was his own home. A revived body slammed into Homelander's path, not to win, but to slow. Homelander tore it in half with one angry motion. The pieces still twitched. Homelander's face tightened. Disgust, anger, something else under it that he would never admit. Uncertainty. Annie ran after the doctor, but kept distance, scanning corners, trying to protect staff while hunting something that didn't run the way she expected. and Frenchie moved to secure exits with foam and locks. Kimiko guarded Huey, eyes tracking the halls. Butcher stood back, watching the chaos he caused like it was a show. Huey shoved Butcher hard. "You tried to get him killed." Butcher grabbed Huey's wrist, grip like iron. "I tried to end it." Huey yanked free. "That's not ending it. That's gambling with people." Butcher's eyes went cold. "Welcome to the job." Down the hall, a door opened quietly. The doctor stepped into an empty supply room, calm as ever. He closed the door behind him. He opened his case and checked his tools like a man making sure his hands were clean. Outside, alarms blared and people screamed and cameras rolled. He spoke softly to himself. "This place," he said. "So many patients, so little discipline." He heard footsteps approaching, fast, heavy. Homelander. The doctor looked at the supply room's back wall. A vent, a service tunnel, a path a normal person might not notice. He moved without hurry. When Homelander ripped the supply room door open, heat vision already glowing, the room was empty. Homelander roared in rage, and somewhere below the hospital, in a maintenance corridor that smelled like bleach and dust, the doctor walked away. He did not look back. He had done what he came to do. He had learned. This world had powerful men who thought they were gods, but even gods had habits. Even gods had rules they followed when cameras were watching, and the doctor understood rules. That was why he could break them. Outside, the sun rose over the city. People still went to work. Vought prepared new statements. Lawyers drafted new, touch-free guidelines in neat fonts. And Homelander stood in a hospital hallway, staring at his own hands, furious that for the first time in a long time, he was thinking before he moved. Because one mistake now had a new price. One touch. 1 second. And he might fall like anyone else. By noon, the city had new rules that nobody voted on. People stopped shaking hands. They stopped helping strangers up off the sidewalk. They held doors open with their feet. In offices, co-workers passed pens by sliding them across desks like they were feeding an animal through a cage. On the news, the subway clip played on a loop. The hospital clip followed right after it. The camera angles were shaky. The sound was screaming in alarms. In every version, the same shape stood in the middle of the panic. A long coat, a beaked mask, dark gloves, a calm voice, and bodies that did not stay down. Ashley Barrett watched all of it from a conference room that smelled like burned coffee and panic sweat. Her team had turned the room into a command center. Screens, phones, legal pads, a giant whiteboard covered in words like narrative, risk, and control. On the table in front of her sat a stack of printed documents so thick it looked like a school textbook. At the top of the stack was a bright cover page. Vought Touch-Free Safety Protocols, version 1.0. Ashley pinched the bridge of her nose and tried not to scream. A lawyer slid a second stack toward her. We also drafted waiver forms for hospital staff, security staff, and Ashley snapped. Why are there waivers for breathing? The lawyer blinked, offended by the question. Because if we call it a public safety event, there will be lawsuits. Ashley's phone buzzed. Another notification. Senator Caldwell demands answers. CDC requests access to bodies. Federal agency tasking. Anomalous event. Ashley read the last one twice. Anomalous? She muttered. We don't say that word. Someone at the far end of the table raised a hand. Actually, we can say it if we define it as... The door opened, and every voice died. Homelander walked in without hurry, like he was late to nothing, like time belonged to him. Ashley stood so fast, her chair rolled back and hit the wall. Okay, hi, so. We're doing a full response plan. Homelander's eyes didn't go to the papers. They went to a paused frame on one screen, the beaked mask. Homelander stared at it like it was a personal insult. He ran, Homelander said. Ashley swallowed. He escaped a hospital during a lockdown. That's not... He ran, Homelander repeated, voice flat. Ashley tried to shift into work mode. Okay, yes, but we got something. We found a tag. In one of his bags. Homelander's eyes flicked to her. Say it. Ashley lifted a clipboard with hands that tried not to shake. We think he calls himself Subject 049. Homelander's jaw tightened. Ashley rushed on, words tumbling. We're also rolling out no physical contact rules for public events. Gloves, distance lines. We're calling it... Homelander turned toward the lawyer. Does any of this stop him? The lawyer opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Homelander looked back at Ashley. Find him. We're trying, Ashley said. But he's not leaving normal patterns. No phone. No bank card. No social media. He's like a ghost, Homelander finished for her. Ashley nodded hard. Yes, exactly. But we can lure him. Homelander's eyes narrowed. How? Ashley pointed to the whiteboard. He goes where people are sick, so we create a controlled sick zone, a clinic, a quarantine area. We announce an outbreak. We bait him. Homelander's smile was small and sharp. Good. Ashley's throat tightened. And we capture him without touch. Drones, nets, foam, whatever whatever our tech team builds. Homelander stepped closer to the table. He placed one hand on the stack of touch-free protocols. Paper crinkled under his fingers. He leaned in until Ashley could see her own terrified reflection in his eyes. Do it fast, Homelander said, because every time that thing kills someone, it looks like I didn't stop it. Ashley nodded so hard her neck hurt. Yes, absolutely. Homelander straightened and walked out. Ashley let out a breath, like she had been underwater. A junior PR assistant whispered, Do we put out a statement about why the Seven couldn't stop him? Ashley turned slowly. Her smile was not nice. No, Ashley said. We put out a statement about how the Seven are leading the response, and how citizens must follow the new safety rules. She slapped the stack of papers. And we make everyone sign these. Someone else whispered, half joking, What if he doesn't sign? Ashley stared at the paused mask on the screen. We're going to find out, she said quietly, what he does to people who refuse. Annie January stood on a rooftop across from Vault Tower because she couldn't breathe inside it right now. The city spread out below her. Sirens, helicopters, news vans, people moving like ants in fear. She watched a Vote truck unload boxes outside a building entrance. Workers in matching jackets handed out branded gloves to a group of hospital staff. The gloves were white, with a blue V logo on the wrist. Safe hands, a banner on the truck read. Annie's face twisted. Even now, even with people dying, Vought found a way to sell safety like a product. Her phone buzzed. Ashley again. Need you for public calming. Live statement 3 p.m. Read script. Do not improvise. Annie stared at the message until her eyes hurt. She heard footsteps behind her. She didn't turn. She already knew the sound. Huey stepped carefully onto the roof, like he didn't want to startle her. Annie's shoulders tightened. You shouldn't be here. Huey's face was pale. There was a fresh bruise on his cheekbone. He looked like he hadn't slept. I know, Huey said. But I needed to talk to someone who isn't insane. Annie gave a short, humorless laugh. Bad choice. Huey stepped closer, but stopped at a polite distance, like the whole city had taught him that lesson already. You saw him, Huey said. Up close. Annie nodded once. Huey swallowed. He talked to me. He sounded like a teacher. He sounds like a doctor, Annie said. That's what makes it worse. Huey stared out at the city. Butcher tried to use him. Annie's jaw clenched. I know. Huey's voice shook. He tried to use him on Homelander. Annie didn't answer right away. She watched a helicopter pass, its shadow sliding over the street like a slow hand. Homelander is going to take it personally, she said finally. Huey's eyes flicked to her. He always does. Annie looked at Huey, and for a second she let herself be honest. I saw Homelander hesitate, she said quietly. Huey blinked. What? Annie's voice stayed low. He didn't rush him. He didn't grab him. He thought. Huey's mouth opened, then closed again. Annie kept going because she needed to say it out loud to believe it. That mask, she said. Whatever he is, he put something new in Homelander's head. Huey swallowed. Fear. Annie didn't correct him. Because yes, If it was fear, it was the first useful crack in a wall that never broke. Huey rubbed his hands together without realizing. So what do we do? Annie looked away. I don't know. Huey's voice got sharper, frustration mixing with panic. He's killing people, but he thinks he's helping. How do you fight that? Annie's eyes hardened. You don't let him get close. Huey let out a bitter breath. Great. So everyone just stays 6 feet apart forever. That's the plan. Annie glanced at him. You want a better one? Huey hesitated, then admitted it. I want to talk to him, Huey said. Annie stared. Huey. I know, Huey rushed. It's stupid. But he listened. For a second. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't. Like Homelander. Annie's face softened for the smallest moment. Listening doesn't mean he'll stop. Huey nodded. Yeah. But if there's even a chance, I can't just let Butcher turn him into a weapon. Annie looked down at the street again. A mother held her kid's hand tight, but not too tight, like she was afraid of touching. I can't either, Annie said. Huey's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and flinched. It's MM, he said. They found something. Annie's eyes narrowed. What? Huey looked back at her. Bodies. Not from the hospital. Somewhere else. Annie's stomach dropped, because she knew what that meant. He wasn't just running. He was working. Mother's Milk didn't like basements. He didn't like cramped spaces. He didn't like doors that only opened one way. He didn't like places where people could disappear and no one would hear it. So of course the lead took them to a basement. MM stood at the top of a stairwell behind an abandoned dental office. The sign outside still said, "Smiles for all." But the windows were boarded up. The city had a million places like this. Empty buildings, waiting to become something worse. Frenchie adjusted the straps of a large bag on his chest. He had built it overnight, and it showed. Wires, canisters, foam grenades, a pole weapon with a rubber claw at the end. I call it the grabber, Frenchie said, almost proud. You can push, pull, pin, no skin contact. MM didn't smile. We're not grabbing him, Frenchie shrugged. We're at least trying. Kimiko stood beside Huey, eyes sharp. She had a new pair of thick gloves on, the kind construction workers wore. It looked strange on her, like putting mittens on a tiger. Huey's voice was small. You sure this is him? MM nodded. He pointed to the ground near the door. Drag marks. Old bloodstains scrubbed but not fully erased, and something else. A line of footprints in dust that didn't match any normal shoe. Too stiff, too heavy in the heel. Those are his helpers, MM said. Butcher leaned against the wall, calm as always, like basements didn't bother him at all. You smell that? Butcher asked. Huey sniffed. Bleach? Butcher's grin widened. Clean. He likes clean. MM looked at Butcher. No hero moves. Butcher rolled his eyes. Fine. MM moved first, because he had to. He eased down the stairs, one step at a time, pole weapon ready. Frenchie followed, Kimiko and Huey behind them. Butcher last. The basement door at the bottom wasn't locked. That was the first bad sign. MM pushed it open with the grabber. The smell hit them like a wall. Not rot. Not sewage. Something worse because it was wrong for a basement. It smelled like a hospital, like alcohol wipes and disinfectant, like someone had tried to make a clinic in a place that should never be clean. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, swinging slightly. The room was large, with old dental chairs pushed to the sides. In the center sat a metal table. On the table were tools, neat, lined up, clean. Huey's stomach turned. Frenchie whispered, He is organized. MM's eyes scanned the corners. Then he saw them. 2 bodies slumped against the far wall, not moving, not breathing, but their skin looked set, like they had been here long enough for the cold to claim them. Huey covered his mouth. Kimiko's eyes went hard. Butcher's voice was low, almost respectful in the worst way. "He's building." Stepped closer. Careful. He did not touch the bodies. He didn't want to know what touch meant in this room. Beside the bodies sat a notebook, thick paper, handwritten lines in old ink. Frenchie reached out, then stopped himself. "No," warned. Frenchie nodded, then used the grabber claw to flip the notebook open without touching it. The writing was neat, almost beautiful. Huey couldn't read most of it, but he saw repeating words. Pestilence, treatment, subject, and one phrase, written larger than the rest, the saturated one. Jaw clenched. "He's talking about Homelander." Butcher's smile returned. "Told you." Huey's voice shook. "He's studying him." Kimiko pointed sharply to the ceiling. Bum followed her finger. There was a vent that led into darkness. It wasn't a normal vent. It had been widened, forced open. Something had crawled through it. Backed up, slow. "He's not here," said, "but he was, recently." Butcher tilted his head, listening. Then he grinned like he heard a song. "Too quiet," Butcher said. "That means he knows." Eyes widened. "Move." They turned, and the bulb went out. Darkness dropped like a blanket. Huey froze. Then a calm voice spoke from the black, close enough to make Huey's skin crawl. "You are trespassing," the voice said. Huey's heart hammered. We're not." A flashlight snapped on from Frenchie's hand, a thin beam cutting through dust. The beaked mask stood near the metal table. Still. Perfect posture. Gloves folded behind his back like a teacher waiting for students to sit. He looked at them. Not angry, just disappointed. "You have entered a treatment area without permission," he said. Butcher laughed once. "Permission? Listen to this bloke." Raised the grabber pole. "Back away." The doctor's head tilted. "You carry tools. You fear contact." Huey forced himself to speak. "We don't want to hurt you." The doctor turned his mask toward Huey. "Yet, you come armed." Huey swallowed. "We're scared." The doctor nodded slowly. "Fear is common." Butcher stepped forward half a pace. "And murder is common too. In this city." The doctor's voice stayed calm. "This city is ill." Butcher's eyes narrowed. "And you're the cure, yeah?" "Yes," the doctor said. Butcher grinned. "Brilliant. I've got a patient for you." Snapped. "Butcher, no." Butcher ignored him. "Homelander. That's your big one, right?" "Saturated one." The doctor went still for a moment, like a doctor hearing a difficult diagnosis. "You know of him," the doctor said. Butcher spread his arms. "Everyone knows him. He's a disease with a cape." The doctor's voice grew a shade colder. "He requires urgent intervention." Huey felt sick, because Butcher was getting what he wanted. A line, a connection, a target. Stepped between them, firm. "No deals. We're not doing this." The doctor looked at "You attempt to restrain. You attempt to control. That is familiar." Frenchie whispered. "He speaks like he is not from here." Kimiko shifted her weight, ready. She could rip the doctor apart if she got her hands on him, but she couldn't. Not safely. The doctor glanced at Kimiko. "Interesting," he said softly. "You have been altered." Kimiko's eyes flashed with anger. Huey felt his stomach twist again. The doctor wasn't guessing. He was observing. Like he said, voice stayed steady. "We're leaving. This ends without more bodies." The doctor took one step forward. Huey flinched, not because he thought the doctor would sprint, because one step was enough. Always. The doctor stopped, hands still behind his back. "I will continue," he said, "with or without your consent." MM's jaw tightened. "Then we stop you." The doctor paused. Then he did something none of them expected. He bowed, a small, formal bow. "As you wish," he said. And behind them, in the darkness near the stairs, something moved. MM turned. A body lunged out of the black, arms wide, mouth open, eyes empty. A worker. One of the doctors treated. Kimiko slammed into it, driving it into the wall hard enough to crack concrete. The worker's head snapped. It still reached. Kimiko hit again. And again. Fast. Brutal. The worker didn't feel pain. It didn't get scared. It only obeyed. Frenchie fired foam from a nozzle on his wrist rig, coating the worker's arms and chest. The foam expanded, stiff, pinning it to the wall like a statue. MM swung the grabber pole and pinned the worker's neck at a safe distance, keeping it from biting. Huey backed up, eyes wide, breathing fast. Butcher didn't help. He watched the doctor. The doctor watched them, calm as ever. He didn't run while they were distracted. He didn't need to. He had made a point. He had guards. He had time. "You see?" the doctor said to Huey, almost gently. "You have already adapted." Huey's voice shook. "You made us adapt." The doctor's head tilted. "It was necessary." MM shouted, "We're done!" He grabbed Huey's shoulder and pulled him toward the stairs. Frenchie grabbed his foam rig and moved. Kimiko stayed 1 second longer. Eyes locked on the doctor. The doctor met her gaze. "You suffer," he said quietly. Kimiko's jaw clenched. Her hands curled into fists inside the thick gloves. Then she turned and followed the others. Butcher backed up last, never taking his eyes off the beaked mask. "This isn't over," Butcher said. The doctor gave a slow nod. "No," he agreed. "It is not." When they reached the street, Huey sucked in cold air like it was the first clean breath he'd had all day. MM didn't speak until they were 2 blocks away. Then he said the thing Huey feared. "He's not hiding," MM said. "He's nesting." Butcher's grin returned. "Good," he said. "That means we can find him again." Huey turned on him, anger boiling. "And do what? Throw him at Homelander like a grenade?" Butcher's face went hard. "If it works, yes." Huey's voice cracked. "People die in the middle." Butcher leaned close, eyes sharp. "People already die, mate. Vought does it. Homelander does it. At least this one doesn't lie about what he is." Huey stared at him, sick and furious. MM stepped between them. "Enough." Frenchie wiped sweat from his forehead. "He is learning. He will change his methods." Kimiko made a gesture with her hands, quick and angry. Huey understood her meaning without words. "More will come." MM nodded. "Yeah." And somewhere above them, on a billboard, Homelander's smiling face looked down like a warning. Huey wondered what it would look like if that face ever cracked for real. The next morning, Vought turned fear into paperwork. A citywide alert blasted phones at 8 a.m. Public safety notice. No physical contact. Follow Vaught's safe hand guidelines. Report suspicious medical activity. Under it was a link to a form. A literal form. Ashley insisted on it. She insisted on everything being trackable. If the city had to panic, at least it would panic in organized categories. Inside Vought Tower, Ashley stood in front of a green screen and read a prepared statement with a smile that hurt her cheeks. "We at Vought take your safety seriously," she said, voice bright. "The 7 are working around the clock." The teleprompter rolled. Ashley kept reading. Behind the camera, a technician whispered, "We're getting a live feed from a shelter in Queens." Ashley's smile faltered for half a second. "What shelter?" The technician swallowed. There's a body, but it's standing." Ashley's stomach dropped. She ended the statement early, stepped off set, and marched down the hall to Homelander's private room. He was watching the shelter feed already. He didn't look at Ashley when she entered. On screen, a thin man in a hoodie held a phone up, filming. "You see him?" the man whispered, shaking. "You see him?" The camera swung. A beaked mask stood at the end of the hallway inside the shelter. The doctor didn't move. He was just there. Then a worker shuffled into frame behind him, carrying a blanket. The blanket was stained. Ashley's voice came out thin. "He's doing it again." Homelander's eyes were calm, but his jaw muscle twitched. Ashley forced herself to speak like a professional. "We can deploy the touch-free team, drones, nets, foam. We can—" Homelander's eyes didn't leave the screen. "I'm going," he said. Ashley's blood went cold. "No. You can't just—" Homelander finally looked at her. His smile was soft and dangerous. "Watch me," he said. Ashley's mouth went dry. She knew she couldn't stop him. So she did the next best thing. She tried to shape the story. "If you go," Ashley said fast, "we do it clean. No hospital chaos. No screaming. No civilian deaths on camera." Homelander stared at her. Then he nodded once. "Fine." Ashley swallowed. "And we don't let you get within arm's length." Homelander's smile flickered. Ashley pushed through anyway. "We use noir. We use drones. We use long-range restraint. You hover. You laser. You keep distance." Homelander's eyes narrowed. "I don't take orders." Ashley's voice broke slightly. "It's not an order. It's a plan. A smart one." Homelander's eyes held hers for a long, awful second. Then he turned back to the screen. "Get noir," he said. Ashley exhaled shakily. "Okay," Homelander added, voice almost casual. "And get me a scientist." Ashley blinked. "Why?" Homelander's eyes remained on the beaked mask on screen. "Because," he said, "I want to know what happens if he touches a soup." Ashley's stomach twisted. They were going to test it. They were going to use someone as a sample. And Ashley knew exactly what kind of person Vought would choose for that job. Not one of their stars. Not one of their favorites. Someone disposable. Someone who couldn't fight back. Someone who would sign the waiver because they had no choice. Huey sat on the edge of the safe house couch, staring at his own hands. He kept remembering the way the doctor's voice sounded when he said, "Madam," like he was polite. Like he cared. Huey hated that his brain kept circling one thought. What if he really believes it? Paced. Frenchie worked at the kitchen table, building a longer pole tool with a clamp. Kimiko sharpened a blade, because even in a touch-free world, steel still mattered. Butcher sat in a chair like he owned it, boots on the table, watching the shelter footage on a laptop. "There he is," Butcher said, pleased. "Right on the telly." Snapped, "Turn it off." Butcher didn't. "You see how he moves? Not rushed. Not scared. That's confidence." Frenchie muttered. "That is faith." Huey looked up. "He's not even hiding." Butcher grinned. "Course not. He's daring them." Stopped pacing and faced Butcher. "You're not doing it again." Butcher raised an eyebrow. "Doing what?" "Trying to shove him into Homelander," said. Butcher's smile faded. "If the chance comes, I'm taking it." Huey stood up so fast the couch creaked. "No, we're not." Butcher's eyes turned cold. "We?" Huey's voice shook, but he didn't back down. "We're not turning a killer into our pet killer." Butcher leaned forward. "He's already a killer." Huey swallowed. "Then we stop him." "We don't aim him." Butcher scoffed. "And how do you stop him, Huey? You gonna give him a pep talk? Ask him nicely to stop murdering?" Huey's jaw clenched. "Maybe I can get him to pause. Maybe I can get him to listen long enough." Butcher laughed, loud and sharp. "You're adorable." Kimiko slammed her blade down on the table. The sound cut through the room. Huey turned to her. She signed quickly, angry and tight. Frenchie translated softly. She says, "If he touches you, you die." There is no talk after. Huey swallowed hard. "I know." MM stepped closer to Huey, calmer than Butcher, but just as firm. "Your heart is good, Huey, but your plan gets you killed." "And then what?" Huey looked at MM. "Then we're just like them." MM's eyes softened, tired. "We're already close." Silence sat heavy. Then Frenchie spoke, voice careful. "We can learn more. The basement clinic. The notes. He writes about the saturated one. He is interested in V, in the changes inside bodies." MM nodded. "So he's going after Vought." Butcher's grin returned. Small. "Good." Huey felt sick again. "That means more people die on the way?" Butcher shrugged. "That's the world." MM snapped. "Not if we can help it." Frenchie lifted a small device. "I built something. A flash. Strong. It made him stagger. A little." "We can use that." MM looked at it. "Good. Keep building." Huey stared at the shelter footage, the beaked mask in the hallway, the calm posture. He thought of Annie on the roof. He thought of her hands glowing, trying to make space between monsters. He realized something that scared him. This wasn't just a fight. It was a tug of war. And everyone was pulling on the same rope, but for different reasons. Vought wanted control. Homelander wanted dominance. Butcher wanted revenge. And the doctor wanted a cure so badly that he didn't care what it cost. Huey whispered, mostly to himself. "Someone's going to snap." Butcher heard him anyway. Butcher smiled. "Yeah," he said. "And I'm hoping it's Homelander." The doctor walked through the city like he was invisible. Not because people couldn't see him, because people chose not to. When he appeared on a sidewalk, pedestrians crossed the street without saying a word. When he entered a store, the cashier stepped back and raised both hands. When he passed a group of teenagers, their jokes died in their throats. Fear made space for him. The doctor understood fear. It was another symptom. He carried a new bag now, heavier, filled with tools he had taken from places that didn't lock doors properly. He had also taken something else, a small cooler. Inside it were vials, not blood, not medicine any normal doctor would use. Compound V. He didn't know its name yet, not the way these people said it. But he knew what it was. He had observed it in the hospital. He had observed it in the saturated one. It was in their bodies, like a second system, like a second heartbeat. Didn't feel like the pestilence. It felt like fuel. Like a fire kept in the blood. The doctor did not fear it. He respected it. He had found the likely source of this world's illness, and sources could be treated. He entered an abandoned storage unit and shut the metal door behind him. Inside, he had arranged a clean space, a table, a lamp, a set of tools laid out in perfect order. 2 workers stood in the corner, silent, waiting. They were not alive. They were not dead the way the city understood dead. They were treated. The doctor opened his notebook and wrote in neat ink, "Saturation is artificial. The source is industrial. The pestilence is not natural here." He paused, pen hovering. Then he wrote a second line, slower. "They sell it." The doctor did not understand money the way this world did, but he understood trade. He had seen the posters, the brand gloves, the smiling faces. He had seen suffering turned into product. He looked at his workers and spoke softly. "We will require access," he said, "to the origin." The workers did not answer. They simply waited. The doctor closed the notebook, stood, and lifted his leather case. He was going to find where the vials were made. He was going to find where the sickness began. And this time, he would not be lured by a fake clinic. He would choose his own battlefield. The side quest started with a missing shipment. That was the funny part, if you could call anything about this funny. A Vought driver filed a complaint because a crate of biomedical supplies never arrived at a warehouse. He filled out a form. The form got scanned. The scan got flagged by an automated system that had been updated overnight with a new keyword list. Plague, clinic, surgery, no contact. Ashley's assistant sent it to Ashley. Ashley forwarded it to a security lead. The security lead forwarded it to a lab director. By the time anyone with real power saw it, the shipment was already gone, and the doctor was already walking toward the next one. Annie learned about it from the worst source possible. Homelander. He found her in a hallway and spoke like he was sharing good news. "He's stealing Vought property," Homelander said. Annie's stomach dropped. "You mean he's stealing Compound V?" Homelander smiled. "Look at you, using the right words." Annie's voice went tight. "Why are you telling me this?" Homelander stepped closer, just enough to make her skin crawl. "Because," he said, "you care about people, and this is what you're going to tell yourself." He leaned in, voice low. "If he gets into a Vought lab," Homelander said, "and things go wrong, it won't be my fault when bodies pile up. It'll be his." Annie's hands glowed faintly without her meaning to. Homelander's smile widened. "See? That's the anger I like." Annie forced her glow down. "People are going to die either way." Homelander shrugged. "Welcome to the real world." Then he walked away, humming like he wasn't talking about a slaughter. Annie stood still, fists clenched. She didn't have the luxury of picking the clean option. She had to pick the option that saved the most people, even if it meant working around monsters. They found the facility because Frenchie was good at patterns. Vought tried to hide it under a fake name, of course. Some bland title like Wellness Center. But Frenchie didn't care about names. He cared about deliveries, guards, and cameras. He sat with MM at the safe house table. Maps spread out, receipts and shipment logs stacked like a puzzle. "This one," Frenchie said, tapping a location outside the city. "It has too much security for a wellness center." MM narrowed his eyes. "And too many trucks," Frenchie nodded. "And it is near a place with fences and no windows. That is not for yoga." Huey leaned in. "So it's a lab," Butcher grinned. "Or a farm." MM shot him a look. "Don't." Butcher held up his hands. "Just saying." Kimiko pointed at a smaller building on the map, then mimed a door opening, then pointed to herself and made a quick chopping motion. Frenchie translated softly. "She says she can get in." MM nodded. "We don't rush, we scout," Butcher scoffed. "Scout, sneak, whatever. The point is, our bird doctor's headed there, and so is Homelander." Huey's stomach twisted. "So we're walking into a three-way fight?" MM met his eyes. "Yeah." Huey swallowed. "Great." MM's voice softened, just a little. "Stay close. Follow the plan. No hero moves." Huey nodded, even though his heart didn't. Outside, the city sky was gray with winter cloud. In his head, Huey kept seeing the doctor's gloved hand held out like a simple question. "Are you going to touch me?" And he kept seeing Homelander hesitate. That hesitation was the most dangerous thing in the world, because it meant Homelander was learning too. The facility looked like nothing from the road. A low building, white walls, a few trees, a sign with a friendly name. But everything around it was wrong. High fences, cameras every 20 feet, guards who didn't smile, a second gate behind the first gate, a place built to keep things in, not keep things out. Huey crouched behind a line of bushes with MM and Frenchie. They wore dark clothes and thick gloves. Their faces were tight with focus. Kimiko crouched beside Huey, eyes locked on the guards. Butcher was behind them, whispering into a radio he had stolen from somewhere. "Oi," Butcher muttered. "You seeing this? Looks like a bloody prison." MM whispered, "It is." Frenchie held up a small drone. "We send this first." The drone lifted, quiet, rising above the trees. On Frenchie's small screen, the facility spread out like a diagram. Huey saw loading docks, storage units, a fenced yard, and then he saw something that made his throat go dry. People, not guards. Patients. They moved in the yard under supervision, slow and awkward. Some had bruises. Some had blank stares. Some looked like they were trying not to cry. A care center, Vought called it. Huey had seen enough to know what it really was. A cage for problems, Frenchie whispered, disgusted. They keep them like animals. MM's jaw clenched. We get in, get evidence, get out. Butcher's eyes gleamed. Or we let the doctor in and watch it burn. MM snapped. No. Before the argument could grow, the drone camera caught movement on the far side of the fence. A figure walking along the tree line, long coat, beaked mask. He carried a bag in one hand, and the other hand stayed tucked behind his back, like he was visiting a museum. Huey's heart hammered. He's here. Kimiko's body tensed like a spring. MM whispered, "Stay hidden. Watch." The doctor stopped at the fence and studied it. He didn't test it like a thief. He inspected it like a doctor reading a chart. Then he turned his head slightly, as if listening to the building itself. He walked along the fence until he found a maintenance gate. It had a keypad. The doctor didn't touch the keypad. He simply waited. A guard approached, annoyed. "Hey!" the guard snapped. "You can't be here." The doctor bowed his head. "Sir," he said politely, "you are in danger." The guard laughed once. "Yeah? And you're in a lot more." He reached out to grab the doctor's sleeve. Huey's stomach dropped. The doctor's hand moved like a reflex, a gentle touch to the guard's wrist. The guard dropped instantly. No scream. No struggle. Just down. Huey felt his knees go weak. The doctor looked down at the body, then spoke softly. "I'm sorry," he said. Like always. It was necessary. Then he reached into the guard's pocket and removed a keycard with 2 gloved fingers. He opened the maintenance gate and stepped inside. MM's voice was tight. "He's in!" Butcher's grin was wide. "Showtime." Frenchie whispered, "This will become a massacre." MM stared at the screen. "Not if we move." He turned to Huey. "You stay with me. Understood?" Huey nodded, throat tight. Kimiko's eyes flicked to the fence and back. She signed quickly. Frenchie translated. She says, "If we wait, the patients die." MM nodded. "Then we don't wait." They moved. Fast. Low. Silent. They crossed the fence line through a cut section Frenchie had prepared earlier, slipping into the shadow of the trees. Huey's hands shook, but he kept moving. The facility alarms hadn't sounded yet. Not because nothing happened, because Vought always tried to pretend everything was under control until it wasn't. Inside, the doctor walked like he belonged. He passed a guard station where cameras watched monitors. 2 guards turned toward him. One froze, recognizing the mask from the news. The other raised a gun. "Stop!" the guard yelled. "Hands! Hands where I can see!" The doctor lifted his hand slowly, palms open. "Gentlemen," he said, "there is no need for violence." The guard with the gun barked, "Back up!" The doctor took one slow step forward. The guard fired. The bullet hit the doctor's coat. It tore fabric. The doctor didn't fall. He didn't even flinch like it hurt. He simply looked at the hole. Then he looked back at the guard. "Please," he said, voice calm. Do not contaminate the area." The guard's face twisted in fear. He fired again. The doctor moved to the side, not fast, but enough. The bullet hit the wall. The second guard tried to rush in, maybe thinking tackle first. Think later. The doctor touched him. The guard dropped. The first guard stared, horrified. The doctor stepped closer. The guard backed away, trembling, gun shaking in his hands. The doctor's voice softened, like he was trying to comfort him. "You do not understand," the doctor said. "But you will." The guard ran. The doctor didn't chase. He picked up the dead guard's keycard, then continued forward. In a hallway ahead, a metal door had a bright sign. "Authorized personnel, only biological storage." The doctor paused. He placed the keycard against the scanner. The door clicked. He stepped into cold air. Rows of fridges lined the room, and in the center, on a metal cart, sat a case stamped with a blue V. The doctor approached it like it was sacred, like it was proof. He opened it. Inside were dozens of vials. He lifted one, holding it up to the light. The liquid inside looked ordinary, but the doctor could sense it anyway. He didn't call it Compound V. He called it what it was to him. A manufactured change, a forced alteration, a sickness that people paid for. He placed the vial back carefully, then closed the case and lifted it. He was not here for one sample. He was here for the source. Outside, alarms finally began to howl. Vought had noticed too late. And now the building woke up like a disturbed nest. Guards ran, doors locked, lights flashed. In the yard, patients looked up, confused and scared. Huey and MM slipped through a side entrance and into a service hallway. Frenchie followed, carrying foam and flash charges. Kimiko moved ahead like a shadow. Butcher lagged behind, smiling like he'd been invited. MM whispered, "We find him. We stop him from killing patients, and we get proof of this place." Butcher muttered, "And if we get a chance to end Homelander, we take it." MM glared. "Not today." Butcher's grin didn't fade. "We'll see." A loud crash echoed down the hall, then screaming, then a thud, like a body hitting tile. Huey's stomach dropped. "That's him!" They rounded a corner and saw a guard sprawled on the floor, dead. A second guard backed away down the hall, eyes wide, pointing a gun with shaking hands. At the far end stood the doctor. In one hand, he held the vote case of vials. In the other, he held a small scalpel, clean and ready. The doctor's head turned toward them. He saw MM's pole tool. He saw Frenchie's foam rig. He saw Kimiko's stance. He saw Huey's fear. "You again," he said calmly. And for the first time, Huey thought he heard a hint of recognition. Huey swallowed hard. "You're in a place full of trapped people." The doctor nodded once. "Yes, a reservoir." MM's voice went sharp. "A what?" The doctor's voice stayed clinical. "A contained population, highly altered, highly unstable. The risk is severe." Frenchie whispered, disgusted. "He's not wrong." Huey forced himself forward half a step. "So you're going to cure them by killing them?" The doctor tilted his head. "If it is necessary." Huey's voice cracked. "They didn't choose this." The doctor paused. He looked down the hall toward the yard, as if he could sense the patience behind walls. "Choice," the doctor said softly, like the word was new here. "A luxury." MM raised the pole tool. "Put the case down." The doctor didn't move. "No!" Frenchie lifted a flash charge. "We can blind you! You saw it!" The doctor's head turned slightly toward Frenchie. "Yes," he said. "You learn." Kimiko took one step forward. The doctor's posture shifted, subtle, like he was ready. Then, from the ceiling vents, a noise. Scraping. Huey looked up. A metal grate fell. A treated worker dropped out of the vent like a sack of meat, landing on its feet with a horrible stiff balance. Then another. Then another. 3 workers. All wrong. All quiet. All waiting. Butcher's grin widened. "Oh, you brought friends." The doctor spoke softly, almost to himself. "Assistants." One worker lunged at MM. MM jabbed the pole forward, keeping it at distance, pushing the worker back into the wall. Frenchie fired foam, pinning the worker's arms. But the worker kept pushing, legs driving, head tilting. Teeth snapping. Kimiko slammed into a second worker, ripping it off its feet and throwing it down the hall like trash. It hit the wall and kept moving. Huey's breath came fast. He backed up, trying to find space, trying not to trip. The third worker went for Huey. Huey froze for half a second too long. Kimiko grabbed the worker by the collar and yanked it away, then smashed it into the floor. The worker's bones cracked. It still reached. Huey whispered, terrified. "It doesn't stop." MM shouted, "Flash!" Frenchie tossed the flash charge down the hall toward the doctor's feet and popped it. White light exploded. For a second, everything became bright and flat, like a photo. The doctor staggered. The case of vials tipped in his hand. MM lunged forward with the pole tool, not to hit, but to hook the case handle. He yanked. The case slid out of the doctor's grip and skidded across the floor. Huey's heart jumped. "We got it!" Butcher moved fast. Too fast for a normal man, driven by pure need. He ran toward the case like it was a prize. MM shouted, "Butcher, no!" Butcher grabbed the case handle barehanded. Huey's eyes widened. "Gloves!" Butcher didn't care. He yanked it up and held it like a trophy. The doctor's head turned toward Butcher, and the doctor's voice, for the first time, wasn't gentle. "You," he said. Butcher grinned. "Me?" The doctor took one step forward. Butcher didn't back away. He spread his arms like he was daring the touch. "Go on," Butcher said. "Do it. Cure me." Huey's blood ran cold. Because Butcher wasn't brave. Butcher was gambling with his own life to make a point. MM surged forward, trying to pull Butcher back. Frenchie shouted, "No contact! You idiot!" The doctor lifted his gloved hand. Huey's brain screamed, "Move!" Then a new sound cut through everything. A sharp, rising whine. Drones. Vought drones. They poured into the hallway from a side door like angry insects, cameras on their fronts, tasers and foam cannons under their bodies. A voice boomed over a speaker system. "Stand down. This is a Vought security operation." Ashley's voice. Even through a speaker, it sounded like she was trying not to cry. The drones fired foam at once, not caring who was in the way. Foam sprayed across the hall, coating walls, coating floor, coating workers, coating MM's pole tool. One worker got pinned to a wall like a bug in glue and still tried to move. Another worker got foamed mid-step and froze in place, arms out like a statue. Foam hit Huey's sleeve. He yanked away. Foam hit Butcher's boots. He stumbled. The doctor stepped back, avoiding the thickest spray with careful movements. He watched the drones like he was studying a new surgical tool. Then, a shadow fell across the hallway. The air pressure changed. Huey felt it in his bones. Homelander floated in through a blown-open doorway at the far end, eyes glowing faint red. He hovered above the foam mess like he didn't want to touch the ground. His gaze locked on the doctor. The doctor's head turned slowly. The two of them faced each other down the corridor, separated by bodies, foam, and fear. Huey realized he was holding his breath. Homelander smiled. "There you are," Homelander said. The doctor replied calmly. "You again." Homelander's smile tightened. "You're stealing my property." The doctor's voice was flat. "You are manufacturing illness." Homelander's eyes narrowed. "Say that again." The doctor didn't raise his voice. "You are manufacturing, illness. Homelander's heat vision flashed, slicing through a drone that drifted too close by accident. It fell, smoking. Ashley's voice over the speaker squeaked. "Sir, please, we have protocols." Homelander didn't care. He hovered forward slowly, keeping distance. His eyes glowed brighter. "I'm going to end you," Homelander said, as calmly as ordering coffee. The doctor's posture didn't change. "I'm not your enemy," the doctor said. Homelander laughed once. "Everybody is my enemy when they make me look weak." Huey's stomach dropped. There it was, the truth. Plain. The doctor lifted his gloved hand again, palm out. The same silent question. Homelander's smile twitched. His eyes flicked to that hand. He didn't surge forward. He didn't close the gap. He stopped, a few feet away, hovering, anger burning under control. Huey felt a weird, sick thrill. He's scared. Not of pain, of the unknown. Butcher saw it too. Butcher's grin grew vicious. "Go on, you bloody wanker," Butcher muttered under his breath. "Touch him." MM hissed. "Shut up!" Frenchie whispered, horrified. "This is madness." Kimiko's eyes tracked Homelander like a predator watching a bigger predator. The doctor spoke, voice calm, almost curious. "You hesitate," he said. Homelander's eyes flared red. "I'm not hesitating." The doctor nodded slowly. "You are." Homelander's jaw clenched. Heat vision brightened. He didn't need to touch, so he chose distance. His heat vision fired, a wide sweep down the hall aimed at the doctor's torso. The doctor reacted instantly, not by dodging like a superhero, but by moving like a man who knew the room. He stepped behind a thick metal cabinet. The beam cut into the cabinet, melting an orange line through steel, but it didn't reach him fully. Foam on the floor hissed and smoked. The treated workers didn't flinch. One crawled forward even while a beam scorched the floor beside it. Homelander hovered higher, widening his angle. The doctor moved again, sliding behind a doorway, then into a side hall. Homelander's heat vision chased him, carving glowing cuts into walls. It was raw power. But it wasn't precise enough in a building full of trapped people. A scream sounded from the yard. Huey's head snapped toward it. A patient had seen the beams, seen the smoke. Panic spread like fire. MM's face tightened. "Civilians!" Annie's voice shouted from somewhere outside the hall. "Evacuate the yard! Now!" Starlight's glow flashed through a window, bright and urgent. Homelander hovered, torn between killing the doctor and keeping the cameras from catching him burning patients alive. The doctor used that hesitation like a tool. He moved deeper into the facility, not away, toward the heart, toward where the vials came from. Huey saw the case of Compound 5 still in Butcher's hands. MM grabbed it with his gloved hands and yanked it away. "Drop it," MM snapped. Butcher's eyes flashed with anger. "That's leverage!" MM shoved it into Frenchie's arms. "So is evidence. We came for proof." Butcher's gaze slid back to Homelander and the doctor. "You're missing the bigger prize," Butcher growled. Huey's voice shook. "We're trying to stop a slaughter," Butcher spat. "Same thing." Kimiko grabbed Butcher's sleeve and yanked him back hard. Butcher stumbled, surprised. Kimiko glared at him with a look that said, "Not here. Not now." For once, Butcher didn't fight her. He just stared, breathing hard, anger vibrating off him. MM pointed down the side hall. "We follow the doctor, not because we want to help him, because if he reaches the patients first, he'll treat them." Huey swallowed. "And if Homelander reaches him first?" MM's voice turned grim. "Then the building becomes ash." Frenchie nodded, face pale. "We move." They ran. Down a corridor lined with locked doors. Behind one door, Huey heard sobbing. Behind another, he heard someone begging to be let out. The facility wasn't just a lab, it was a horror maze with friendly paint. They reached the biological storage wing. The door was open, cut and melted at the edges from heat vision. Inside, fridges stood open. Vials were missing. Some had shattered on the floor, and in the center, the doctor stood over a metal cart, head tilted, studying papers on a clipboard. He looked pleased, like a scientist who just found the missing page. Huey burst in, breathing hard. "Stop!" The doctor looked up calmly. "You followed," he said. MM raised the pole tool. "Hands where we can see them." The doctor lifted his hands slowly. His gloves were clean. "Your anger is misplaced," he said to MM. Huey stepped forward, shaking. "Those people outside, those patients, they're scared. They're trapped. They're not sick the way you think." The doctor's voice stayed steady. "They are altered." Huey's voice cracked. "So are you." The doctor paused. That hit something. Not guilt, but thought. "I am not altered," he said finally. "I am trained." Huey swallowed hard. "Trained doesn't mean right." The doctor's head tilted. "And you are right?" Huey's hands clenched. "I'm saying consent matters." The doctor was quiet for a beat. Then he said softly, "Consent does not stop plague." MM snapped. "He's not listening." Frenchie lifted a foam grenade, finger ready. Kimiko shifted, ready to explode forward the second the doctor came close. The doctor's gaze moved across them. Then it landed on Huey again. "You are the one who speaks," the doctor said. "You believe words can cure?" Huey swallowed. "Sometimes they can." The doctor's voice was almost kind. "Then speak." Huey's heart hammered. He didn't know what to say. He didn't have a perfect argument. He didn't have magic words. So he said the simplest truth he had. "They hurt," Huey said. "They didn't choose to become that. If you kill them, you're not saving them. You're just finishing what Vought started." The doctor stood very still. For a second, Huey thought he saw the smallest crack in certainty. Then the ceiling shook. A loud boom. Dust fell. A red glow cut through the storage room wall like a knife through paper. Homelander. He was carving his way in. Huey's stomach dropped. "He's coming!" MM cursed. "Move!" Frenchie grabbed the case of vials tighter. "We cannot let him burn this place with the patients inside." Kimiko's eyes went wide with fury. The doctor didn't look panicked. He looked focused. He reached for the cart and pulled out a folder. Inside were medical files, test results, lists of names. He scanned them fast. Then he spoke, quiet but firm. "This facility," he said, "is the source." Huey shouted, "Then expose it! Don't kill the people in it." The doctor looked at him. "I will reduce suffering," he said. MM snapped. "By ending lives." The doctor's voice didn't rise. "By ending the pestilence." The wall burst open. Homelander floated in through a hole edged with molten metal, eyes glowing bright red, smile gone. His voice was low and furious. "Found you." Heat poured off him. The storage fridges hummed and clicked like they were afraid. Huey backed up instinctively. MM held his pole tool up like it meant something. Frenchie grabbed a flash charge. Kimiko crouched, ready. Homelander's eyes flicked to the case of vials in Frenchie's arms, then to the doctor, then to Huey and the others. His lip curled. "Oh, look. A little reunion." The doctor lifted his gloved hand again. Homelander's eyes narrowed. He hovered forward, then stopped again. The gap between them was only a few steps, and still, Homelander didn't close it. Starlight's voice echoed faintly from outside, shouting orders to evacuate. Ashley's voice crackled over speakers, pleading about protocols. But none of that mattered in this room. Only one question mattered. Would Homelander touch him? Homelander's heat vision flared again. The doctor shifted, using a fridge door like a shield. The beam cut through the door, slicing it clean, but the doctor moved at the same time, staying just out of the line. Homelander growled, losing patience. He blasted the entire row of fridges with heat vision, melting metal, shattering vials, flooding the room with smoke and chemical stink. Frenchie coughed, eyes watering. "He's destroying evidence," MM shouted. "Out! Now!" They moved as one. Huey grabbed Frenchie's arm and pulled him toward the exit. MM shoved Butcher, who had reappeared at the doorway like a bad idea, out of the way. Kimiko sprinted ahead, clearing a path. The doctor stepped backward too, but not away from Homelander, toward a side door. He slipped through it with calm speed. Homelander followed, hovering, blasting holes through walls to keep sight. Huey stumbled into a corridor and almost ran into Annie. She stood there, glowing, face tight with anger and fear. "You!" Annie snapped at Huey. "Why are you here?" Huey panted, "To stop people from dying." Annie's eyes flicked to the smoke pouring from the storage wing. "Then help me get the patients out now." Huey nodded and ran with her. Behind them, Homelander's heat vision carved the building like a butcher, and the doctor moved deeper into the maze, carrying something more valuable than vials now. Knowledge. The truth about what Vought had done. The truth about what was inside people's blood. The truth about the source. And the doctor did what he always did with the truth. He prepared to treat it. By nightfall, the facility was half evacuated and half destroyed. Vought claimed it was an unfortunate containment breach. They called the patients unstable individuals. They promised full care. They promised full review. They promised it while shredding files and wiping servers. The government demanded access. Vought stalled. Ashley held a press conference with a trembling smile and a stack of new papers. Updated protocols. Updated forms. Updated waivers. "Effective immediately," Ashley said, reading, "All Vought-affiliated personnel must wear approved gloves and maintain safe distance until further notice." On the screen behind her, a smiling Homelander image appeared with the words, "Safety is strength." Annie watched from the side of the stage, stomach turning. In the crowd, reporters shouted questions. "Is this SCP-049? Is the plague doctor a soup? Can he kill Homelander?" Ashley's smile tightened. "We are investigating the individual known as 049. A reporter shouted, "Did Homelander hesitate?" Ashley's voice clipped. "Homelander acted with decisive strength to protect." Annie looked away, because she knew what decisive strength looked like, and she also knew what hesitation looked like. In a quiet street miles away, the doctor walked past a billboard showing the Safe Hands gloves. He did not stop. He did not laugh. He simply observed. The city was adapting. He had changed their behavior without even trying. Fear was a powerful medicine. He entered a new building, one he had chosen carefully. An old clinic closed during a funding fight, left empty and forgotten. Inside, he set down his bag. He laid out his tools in perfect order again. He placed the folder of files from the facility on the table. He opened it and read names. Test subject numbers, medical notes. He paused on one page longer than the rest. A patient file with a photo. A woman with bruises under her eyes. A note. Agitation. Pain episodes. Requests termination. The doctor's head tilted. He didn't understand the word termination the way Vought meant it, but he understood pain. He looked toward the corner where two treated workers stood, silent. He spoke softly. "This world," he said, "creates suffering as a process." He opened his notebook and wrote one clear line. "They are the pestilence. Outside, the city kept moving. People wore gloves. They kept distance. They watched shadows. Soup smiled for cameras with their hands carefully visible. And in the sky above it all, Homelander floated alone, staring down at streets full of humans who suddenly flinched when anyone reached out. He told himself it was because of the doctor, but deep down, he knew something else. It was because people had learned a new kind of fear. Not fear of power, fear of touch, and that fear didn't belong to him. Not yet. Not if the doctor kept walking. Not if the doctor kept curing. Somewhere in the city, a rumor spread through hospitals and shelters like a whispered prayer. If you see the mask, don't run. Don't fight. Don't touch. Just stay still and hope he decides you're not sick. 2 weeks later, the city still looked like the city, but it didn't feel like it. On glass doors, signs had appeared everywhere. No handshakes. Keep distance. Thank you for your cooperation. Vought made sure their logo was on most of the signs. They even printed little stickers for elevators. Safe hand zone. People wore thin gloves in coffee lines. Teachers kept extra pairs in classrooms. Some folks laughed about it online like it was a trend, but they still wore them because a few more people had died, not in big, loud attacks, in quiet, close moments. A hand on a shoulder, a grab in a fight, a helping hand that became a mistake. Each time, witnesses described the same thing. A calm figure, a beaked mask, a gentle voice. And then the body fell. Ashley Barrett walked through Vought Tower with a folder under her arm and a headset on her head, like she had become part of the building. Her team had upgraded the touch-free safety protocols twice already. Version 3.2 was now the official one. It was longer. It had color-coded steps. It had a full page about how to speak to reporters without saying the words plague, curse, or monster. Ashley turned a corner and almost ran into a rolling cart stacked with boxes. The boxes were full of gloves. An employee pushing the cart said, "Sorry," and backed up fast, like even bumping shoulders was scary now. Ashley didn't answer. She just kept walking. She pushed into a small meeting room and found Homelander already there, sitting at the head of the table like a king who had decided chairs were allowed today. A scientist sat 2 seats away from him, pale and sweating. A lawyer sat beside the scientist, holding a clipboard like it could block heat vision. Ashley shut the door and forced a smile. "Okay," she said. "We have a location pattern." Homelander didn't look at her. "Say it." Ashley tapped her tablet. A map appeared on the screen. "Medical supply thefts," she said. "Disinfectant, scalpels, suture kits, formaldehyde, old clinic buildings, 3 boroughs." Homelander's eyes narrowed. "So he's building a nest." Ashley swallowed. "A clinic." Homelander leaned forward. "And?" Ashley pointed at a highlighted area. "This block has 2 thefts, 1 witness report, and a CCTV hit. A coat. A mask shape. Same movement." Homelander finally looked at her. "Good," he said. "We go now." Ashley's stomach sank. "We go with the team. Touch-free squad. Drones. Foam. Noir. We keep it clean. No civilians on camera." Homelander's smile was thin. "Yes." Ashley glanced at the scientist, then at the lawyer. "And we do not test on," Homelander cut her off. "We test on whoever I say." The scientist flinched. Ashley forced her voice to stay steady. "If you kill people on camera, the story..." Homelander's eyes hardened. "I don't care about the story. I care about control." Ashley nodded quickly. Of course. That's why the plan matters. Distance, drones, no touching." Homelander stared at her for a long second. Then he said, quiet and sharp, "You're scared." Ashley's mouth went dry. I'm focused. Homelander leaned back and looked at the ceiling like he was bored again. Good, he said. Fear keeps people smart. Ashley hated that he was right. She turned to leave and almost forgot the folder in her hand. She set it on the table anyway, because it was what she did. A thick packet titled, Contact Risk Waivers. Field Operations. Homelander didn't even glance at it, but the lawyer grabbed it like it was oxygen. Across town, in a safe house that smelled like old paint and stress, laid out gear on the table. Pole tools, foam canisters, flash charges, thick gloves, goggles. Huey watched, arms crossed tight. He had started wearing gloves outside, not because he believed Vought, because he didn't trust the city anymore. Frenchie held up a long clamp tool with rubber pads. I improved it, Frenchie said. You can pin him against a wall without contact. Nodded. Good. Butcher leaned against the doorway with a grin. Look at us, Butcher said. Like a bunch of janitors preparing to mop up a nightmare. Huey snapped. Stop acting like this is funny. Butcher's grin didn't fade. It's not funny. It's useful. Kimiko sat on the couch, silent, watching the tools like she was memorizing them. Looked at Huey. We got a lead too. Huey's stomach tightened. Where? Slid a paper across the table, a printed map with a circle drawn around a block. Same block Vought is sniffing, said. So we move now. We get there first. Butcher's eyes lit up. Perfect. Huey stared at the map, then at First for what? To kill him? To use him? MM's voice was tired. First to keep him from killing people? Butcher shrugged. Also, if he kills Homelander, I won't cry. Huey stepped closer to Butcher, anger rising. You're still on that. Butcher's face went flat. Always! Huey looked at pleading. Tell him. Met Huey's eyes. We can't control Butcher. We can only control what we do. Huey swallowed hard. Then what do we do? Tapped the table. We do what you wanted. We talk first. Butcher scoffed. Talk. MM's voice sharpened. Yes, talk. Huey takes point. You say your piece. If it fails, we fall back, and we contain as best we can. Butcher opened his mouth. Kimiko lifted her hand, palm out, a silent warning. Butcher stared at her, then looked away. Fine, he muttered. But if he gives me a clean shot at the big blonde? Cut in. No. Butcher smiled again, smaller. We'll see. Huey hated that answer, because it meant Butcher had already decided. The building they found used to be a walk-in clinic. The old sign was still above the door, faded and cracked. Care First Medical. The windows were covered from the inside with paper and plastic, like someone had tried to seal the world out. Huey stood across the street with Frenchie, Kimiko, and Butcher. It was early morning, cold, quiet. A Vought delivery truck rolled by slowly, too slow to be normal. It kept going. Whispered, They're close. Frenchie nodded. We must be faster. Kimiko pointed at the roof. Huey followed her finger and saw a vent pipe that looked bent, like something heavy had climbed near it. Lifted his pole tool. We go in from the back. Quiet. No hero moves. Butcher smirked. Spoil sport. They moved down the alley, stepping around trash bags and frozen puddles. The back door was slightly open. Huey's skin prickled. Didn't touch the handle. He used the clamp tool to pull the door wider. Inside, the smell hit them first. Not rot. Clean. Bleach and alcohol wipes. It was the wrong smell for an abandoned clinic. Huey's heart beat hard as they stepped into a hallway. The lights were on. Not bright. Not warm. Just enough to see. The walls had been wiped down. The floor had been scrubbed. Old posters about flu shots were torn down. At the end of the hall, a room glowed faintly. Whispered, "He's here." Huey took one step forward and heard a soft sound, a slow scrape, then another. A figure crossed the hallway opening ahead of them, not the doctor. One of the treated. It moved stiffly, carrying a box of supplies. Its eyes were open but empty. It didn't look at them. It didn't need to. Huey's throat tightened. "Oh God." Frenchie's voice was a whisper. "He has staff." Kimiko tensed, ready to explode forward. Held up a hand. "Stop." They moved closer. Slow. Careful. Huey saw into the main room, a metal table, tools lined up neatly, cloths folded into squares, a few vials in a small cooler. On a wall, handwritten notes were taped in rows like a school project. Sources, symptoms, treatment steps, failed cases. In the center of it all stood the doctor. He was writing in his notebook with calm focus. His posture was perfect. His gloves were clean. His coat had new stitches where bullets had torn it. He didn't look surprised when he spoke. "You have returned," he said, without turning around. Huey froze. "How did you?" The doctor turned slowly. His glass lenses pointed straight at Huey. "I hear your breathing change," the doctor said. "When you are afraid." Huey's mouth went dry. Lifted the pole tool in front of Huey like a shield. "Step back." The doctor tilted his head. "You bring instruments. You continue to adapt." Huey forced himself to take a small step forward, past MM's tool, but still at a safe distance. "We're not here to fight," Huey said. Butcher snorted behind him. Huey didn't look back. He kept his eyes on the mask. "You're killing people," Huey said. "You think it's helping, but it's not." The doctor's voice was calm, almost patient. "They are afflicted." Huey shook his head. "Some are just scared. Some are just trying to live." The doctor said, "Fear is not health." Huey swallowed. "Then why don't you help without killing?" The doctor paused like he was choosing words carefully. "Because the pestilence does not leave," he said. "It must be removed." Huey's hands clenched. "Removed from who? From what?" "You keep saying it. What is it?" The doctor's head tilted farther. "It is the wrongness, the decay of purpose, the illness behind the eyes." Huey's voice cracked. "That's not medical. That's you deciding you know better than everyone." The doctor's voice stayed even. "I do know better than most." Huey felt anger rise. "That's what Vought says." The doctor went still. Just slightly. Huey pushed, because he had to. "Vought hurt those people in that facility," Huey said. "They did experiments. They sold power like it was candy. They lied. They made monsters and called them heroes." The doctor's voice was quiet. "Yes." Huey blinked. "Yes?" "I have observed," the doctor said. "The source is industrial, intentional. They create suffering as a method." Huey felt a strange, sharp hope. "Then you understand. Then you can help expose them instead of killing people who are already trapped." The doctor looked at Huey for a long moment. Then he said, "I am helping." Huey's hope faltered. "How?" The doctor walked to the wall and tapped one of the notes with a gloved finger. On it was a simple sentence. "They are the pestilence." Huey stared. "You mean Vought?" Huey said. The doctor nodded once. "Yes." Butcher's voice rose from behind, excited. "Hear that? He gets it." Hissed. "Shut up." Huey looked back at the doctor. "Then treat Vought, not random people on the street." The doctor's voice was gentle again. "You want me to limit my work?" Huey swallowed. "I want you to stop killing people who didn't choose this." The doctor walked back to the table and placed his notebook down neatly. Like ending a conversation in a classroom. "I will not stop," he said. Huey's stomach sank. "Then what was the point of talking?" The doctor looked at Huey. "The point," he said, "was to understand your objection." Huey's voice shook. "And?" The doctor's voice was calm, almost kind. "It is noted." Huey stared in disbelief. "Noted?" Butcher laughed quietly. "He's a bureaucrat, mate." The doctor's head turned toward Butcher. "You are hostile," the doctor said. "You desire a specific death." Butcher stepped forward, grin sharp. "Yeah, yours and his." Moved in front of him. Back. Butcher didn't stop. "You want a big patient, doctor? I can point you to the biggest disease in the sky." Huey's blood went cold. "Butcher!" The doctor didn't react like a man being tempted. He reacted like a doctor hearing a relevant referral. "The saturated one," the doctor said softly. Butcher's grin widened. "That's the one." Huey saw it happen, the rope being pulled. Butcher tugging the doctor toward revenge, and the doctor, calm and certain, treating it like a clinical decision. Huey stepped forward fast, voice urgent. "No, that's not how this works. You don't get to decide to treat someone because someone else hates them." The doctor's mask turned back to Huey. "You speak as if hatred is rare," he said. Before Huey could answer, a new sound filled the clinic. A high, buzzing whine. Drones. MM's head snapped toward the ceiling. "They're here," Frenchie whispered. "Vought." The clinic windows flashed with moving shadows as drones hovered outside, scanning. A loudspeaker crackled. Ashley's voice filled the building, shaky but trying to sound official. "This is Vought Security. Subject 049. You are surrounded. Comply with touch-free protocols." Huey's stomach dropped. "Ashley's here." Butcher smiled like Christmas came early. And so is he. The air pressure changed. Huey felt it in his teeth. A shadow slid across the clinic ceiling. Then a heavy thud hit the roof. A moment later, the roof cracked. Homelander dropped through the ceiling like a wrecking ball, landing without bending his knees. Dust and plaster fell around him. He hovered up an inch immediately, as if the floor itself was dirty now. His eyes glowed faint red. The treated worker carrying supplies froze in the corner, then stepped in front of the doctor like a bodyguard. Homelander stared at the mask. The doctor stared back. Huey stood between monsters again, and his legs wanted to run. Homelander spoke first, voice low and sharp. "You picked a cute little hideout," the doctor replied calmly. "You are persistent." Homelander's lip curled. "You made people afraid of touching. That's my job." The doctor tilted his head. "Fear is a symptom, not a cure." Homelander's smile vanished. He pointed a finger toward the doctor like he was pointing a gun. "I'm going to burn you," Homelander said. "And then I'm going to burn every one of these." "Things you made," Huey shouted. "There are people in this neighborhood." Homelander didn't look at him. "Then they should have stayed inside." Annie's voice shouted from outside the clinic door, urgent and furious. "Homelander, stop!" The front doors burst open with a blast of light, and Starlight stepped in, glowing, eyes wide with alarm. Behind her, Vought agents in thick gloves and face shields formed a line, carrying foam cannons and pull tools. Ashley stood behind them, holding a megaphone with shaking hands, face pale. Huey had never seen Ashley this close to the edge. She looked like she might faint. Annie's eyes locked on Huey for half a second, shocked. Then she looked at the doctor, and her face tightened. "This ends without civilians dying," Annie said loudly. Homelander's head turned toward her slowly, like a predator turning toward a smaller predator. "Get out," he said. Annie didn't move. "No." Huey's chest hurt. He couldn't believe he was seeing it. Her standing there, against him. Homelander's eyes flicked to the cameras on the drones outside, then to Ashley, then back to Annie. His jaw clenched. He didn't want to be seen killing her. Not like this. Not right now. The doctor watched all of it like he was observing a test. "You have constraints," the doctor said to Homelander. Homelander's eyes flared bright red. "I don't have constraints." The doctor lifted his gloved hand, palm open, and took one slow step forward. Homelander stopped. He stopped again. The gap was only a few feet. Homelander hovered, rage boiling under forced control. Huey felt a sick certainty settle in. This was it. This was the dangerous part. Homelander could kill from far away. Everyone knew that. But in a tight clinic, with people and cameras and Annie in the room, he couldn't just scorch everything. The doctor knew that. The doctor's voice stayed calm. "If you wish to be treated," he said, "I can begin." Homelander snarled. "I don't need your help." The doctor nodded. "Yes, you do." Homelander's heat vision fired. A wide red beam cut across the clinic, but it didn't sweep the whole room. It aimed for the doctor's chest. The treated worker stepped into the beam. Its body burned. It didn't scream. It didn't stop. It kept stepping forward until it collapsed in smoking pieces. The doctor moved behind a heavy metal cabinet, then behind a wall, using the clinic like a maze. Homelander's heat vision carved through plaster, leaving glowing lines. But he kept adjusting, careful, because Annie was still in the room and the drones were filming. Annie raised both hands and blasted a beam of light into the ceiling sprinklers. The sprinklers exploded and water rained down, mixing with dust and smoke. The water hit Homelander's cape. It soaked and clung. Homelander's face tightened with disgust. "Really?" he snapped. Annie shouted, "Stop cutting through the building!" Huey grabbed one of the Vault agent's foam cannons and yelled, "Use it on the workers, not on him!" The agent hesitated. "We need authorization!" Huey screamed, "Now!" Moved in, yanking the foam cannon and firing at a treated worker that shuffled from a side hall. Foam coated its arms and chest, pinning it to the wall. It still tried to move. Kimiko sprinted in and ripped the worker off the wall with brute strength, then smashed its head against the floor until it stopped trying. Ashley saw that and made a strangled sound into her megaphone. Annie snapped at Ashley. "Get people out of the street, now!" Ashley stammered. We have a perimeter. I have waivers!" Annie shouted. "Nobody cares about waivers!" For 1 second, even in the chaos, Huey almost laughed, because it was so Vought. End of the world, and Ashley had paperwork. But then a treated worker lurched toward a side door that led out to the back alley. If it got outside, it could reach a civilian. Huey ran and slammed the door shut, bracing it with his shoulder. His heart pounded. Behind him, he heard Homelander roar in rage as the doctor slipped farther into the clinic's back rooms. Huey turned and saw the doctor in a narrow hallway, moving toward a stairwell. Homelander hovered at the hallway entrance, heat vision burning at the edges of the walls, trying to cut through without collapsing everything. The doctor stopped at the stairwell door and turned. He looked at Homelander. He lifted his gloved hand again, palm out. Homelander hovered forward a few inches, then stopped, jaw trembling with anger. The doctor's calm voice carried over the water and smoke. "You fear contact," he said. Homelander's eyes burned. "I fear nothing." The doctor replied simply, "You fear losing." Huey saw something in Homelander's face then. Not sadness, not shame. A tight, hungry need to prove the doctor wrong. Homelander's heat vision flared brighter. He aimed at the ceiling above the doctor, not the doctor himself. He cut a hole through the roof. Light poured down. Cold air rushed in. Homelander rose fast, shooting upward through the hole, then hovering above the building. He was changing the battlefield, from inside, where he had constraints, to above, where he didn't. Annie's eyes widened. "He's going to collapse it!" shouted. "Everyone out! Now!" Frenchie grabbed Huey's arm. "Move! Move!" Kimiko yanked Butcher by the collar and dragged him toward the exit. Butcher fought her grip for half a second, then stopped when he saw Homelander's shadow shift on the ceiling. Outside, civilians were gathering at the end of the street, filming with phones despite the danger. Ashley screamed into her megaphone, "Back up! Please, for your safety!" Nobody listened, because in this city, danger was entertainment. Huey stumbled out into the street with Annie, Frenchie, Kimiko, and Butcher. They turned back just as Homelander's heat vision struck the roof again, carving long lines. The building groaned. Then a section of roof caved in. Dust burst out like smoke. Huey's stomach dropped. Annie shouted, "He's inside!" MM's eyes scanned the alley beside the building. "No, look!" A vent cover on the side wall popped open. A treated worker climbed out first, stiff and silent, dropping to the ground. Then the doctor followed, stepping out like a man exiting a train. He didn't run. He didn't rush. He simply walked away from the collapsing clinic, leather case in one hand, notebook tucked safely under his arm. Huey's throat tightened. "He planned that," Frenchie whispered. "He always has a second door." Homelander saw him too. He dropped from the air like a missile, landing in the street with a crack that shattered pavement. Civilians screamed and stumbled back. Phones kept filming anyway. Homelander hovered again instantly, eyes locked on the doctor. The doctor stopped walking. He turned slowly. And then, to everyone watching, he did something insane. He bowed, not to Homelander as a king, to Homelander as a difficult patient. "Sir," the doctor said calmly, "your condition worsens." Homelander's face twisted with fury. He surged forward and stopped again. The doctor lifted his gloved hand, one touch away. Homelander's eyes flicked to the hand. He didn't close the gap. He hovered there, shaking with anger, because the whole street was watching now. If he rushed and died, the world would see him fall. If he burned the whole block, the world would see him as a monster. He needed control. And the doctor had placed control on a knife's edge. Huey stepped forward without thinking. Grabbed him, yanking him back. "No!" Huey fought the grip for a second. "We can't let him," Butcher shouted loud and cruel. "Touch him, doctor! Do your bloody cure!" Annie snapped her head toward Butcher. "Shut up!" Butcher didn't. He was smiling like a man watching a trap close. The doctor's mask turned slightly toward Butcher. "You desire this," the doctor said. Butcher grinned. "Yeah," the doctor's voice was calm. "Your desire is not my directive." Butcher's grin faltered for the first time. Huey blinked, stunned. The doctor turned back to Homelander. "Your body is saturated with an artificial agent," the doctor said. "It is unstable. It is pervasive." Homelander's voice was low and deadly. "Stop talking." The doctor continued anyway. "You are a product," he said. "Manufactured illness made into power." Homelander's eyes flared red. Annie lifted her hands, glow rising, ready to block heat vision if it swept the crowd. Huey held his breath. Homelander fired. A thin beam of heat vision shot toward the doctor's head. The doctor didn't dodge like a superhero. He simply stepped to the side at the last second. The beam sliced a streetlight in half instead, sending sparks raining down. Civilians screamed and scattered. Phones kept filming, shaking. Shouted, "Homelander, you're going to kill someone!" Homelander didn't answer. He fired again, wider, aiming to pin the doctor without touching him. The doctor moved backward, using the alley entrance as cover. A treated worker stepped into the beam and burned. It didn't stop. The doctor didn't pause. He disappeared into the alley. Homelander surged forward, but then he heard the screams and saw cameras swinging back to him. He stopped, hovering over the street like a furious statue. His chest rose and fell fast. Ashley ran up from behind a vote van, face pale, waving a tablet. "Sir," she shouted, "we need to control the footage. We need a statement." Homelander turned his head slowly toward her. Ashley froze. Her tablet shook in her hands. Homelander's voice was quiet and sharp. "Get out of my way!" Ashley stumbled back so fast she almost fell. Homelander looked back toward the alley. The doctor was gone. Again. Homelander's fists clenched so hard the air around them seemed to vibrate. He didn't scream. He didn't punch a building. Not with this many cameras. But Huey saw it anyway. The crack inside him. The rage that had nowhere safe to go. Annie watched Homelander too, eyes narrowed. Then she looked at Huey and MM. "We need to get out," she said fast, "before he decides he doesn't care about cameras anymore." MM nodded. "Move." Frenchie clutched the case of vials they'd taken earlier. Evidence, leverage, a reason to keep fighting. Kimiko dragged Butcher again, because Butcher kept trying to look back like a man who wanted to chase the doctor. Butcher snarled. "He was right there," Huey snapped, "and he left you! He didn't take your bait!" Butcher glared at Huey, furious. Then he looked away, jaw clenched, like he hated that Huey might be right. They disappeared into side streets as vote agents formed a shaky perimeter, and Ashley tried to speak into a camera with a smile that looked like pain. Behind them, Homelander floated above the block, staring at his own hands again, like they had betrayed him. And somewhere in the city's veins, the doctor walked calmly, carrying his tools, carrying his notes, carrying his mission. He had refused Vought. He had refused Butcher. He had not even tried to win a fight with Homelander. He had done something worse. He had made Homelander look uncertain in front of the world. That was not a victory with explosions. It was a slow poison, the kind that spread. 3 nights later, Huey sat at the safe house table with a folder of stolen files spread out in front of him. They had gotten them from the ruined clinic. Not everything burned. The doctor's notes were gone, but the Vought cleanup team had been sloppy in the rush. MM had stolen a drive. Frenchie had cracked it. Now papers were printed out because sometimes paper couldn't be hacked. Huey stared at a line of text that didn't fit with anything else. Anomalous entity, identifier, 49 non-soup origin, likely contact lethal designation. Match, SCP, database entry. Huey looked up slowly. What does SCP mean? MM's face was grim. Government black project stuff. Doesn't sound like Vought. Frenchie frowned. A file from another world, perhaps. Butcher leaned in, eyes sharp. So he's not just a soup. Huey's throat tightened. He's something else. Kimiko watched the page, then looked away, as if she didn't like the feeling it gave her. MM tapped the paper. This means someone out there already had a file on him, before he showed up here. Huey swallowed. So we're not the only ones watching. Butcher grinned. Dark. Good. Let the whole world watch. Let them finally see what monsters look like. Huey stared at the file again. He thought of the doctor's calm voice. With or without your consent. He thought of Homelander hesitating. He thought of Annie standing in a doorway with glowing hands, refusing to move. Huey didn't feel like they had won. He felt like the board had gotten bigger. And the pieces had gotten sharper. On a quiet street at dawn, the doctor entered a new building. Not a clinic with a sign. Not a place people would notice. A closed-down research office that used to belong to a small pharmaceutical company Vought had bought and forgotten. Inside, he had already prepared a room. Clean table. Clean tools. clean cloth, a new row of notes on the wall, a new list of patients in his mind. He set his leather case down and opened his notebook. He wrote carefully, one line at a time. They adapt quickly. Fear spreads faster than plague. The saturated one is restrained by observation. He paused, pen hovering. Then he wrote a final line. Consent is an obstacle. Suffering is not. He closed the notebook and placed it beside his tools. In the corner, 2 treated assistants stood still, waiting like furniture. The doctor looked at them and spoke softly. "We will proceed," he said. Outside, the city woke up. People pulled on gloves. They checked their phones. They avoided crowds. Vought prepared new campaigns and new forms. The boys prepared new plans and new gear. Annie prepared herself for the next time she would have to stand between something powerful and someone helpless. And above them all, Homelander watched the streets from the sky, smiling for cameras, waving without touching anyone. But when he was alone, his smile faded. He stared at his hands like they weren't sure anymore. Because somewhere down there, a calm doctor walked through his world without fear. Not because the doctor was stronger, because the doctor didn't need applause. He didn't need love. He didn't need control over the crowd. He only needed one thing. A single step too close, a single mistake, and the world would learn what treatment really meant.